You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 826. Chapter 826, Chapter 206 First Meeting with Wan Tianqing 1. Night. Faculty Residential Area. Lu Hong's house. Su Yu was smiling. He had really come to visit Lu Hong. "Teacher, thank you for giving me this opportunity." At the entrance, Su Yu began to be polite. Lu Hong looked at him with a smile. "You act, continue acting. I love watching you act." When Su Yu was done with his pleasantries, Lu Hong smiled and said, "If you don't kneel, will it make it more realistic?" "Forget it." Su Yu smiled and said, "Teacher Lu might have already informed me beforehand. It's best to make a first impression. If I kneel again, the effect won't be good." Lu Hong smiled. "It's good that you know. You openly said that you came to visit me. If I don't greet you, who knows how much trouble I'll be in. Let's go in and talk." Lu Hong smiled faintly and invited Su Yu into the house. Su Yu did not stand on ceremony and followed him into the house. Just like last time, this fellow's house was cleaned up quite cleanly. For a grown man to clean it up so cleanly, he was definitely not a good person. "Sit." Lu Hong gestured for him to sit down and said with a faint smile, "Tell me, what's the matter?" "Nothing much. I'm here to visit teacher." As he said that, Su Yu looked around and said with a smile, "Teacher, is there anyone spying on us?" Lu Hong said with a smile, "How is that possible? When you say that it's impossible, then it's very possible. There might really be someone listening in." Listening in was good. Su Yu said with a smile, "That's good then, teacher. Our collaboration this time was very successful. It was the same last time too. After 2 times, the bones of the single divine language series were broken by us." Lu Hong had a headache. He smiled and said, "Don't say that, Su Yu. If you have something to say, just say it. If you really want to trick me, there's no need for that. Those cabinet elders aren't as stupid as you think. We're really in cahoots. Why don't you come and visit me secretly? Why do you have to come and see me openly?" Su Yu smiled and said, "Teacher, there's no one here. What's there to be afraid of? I'm just setting up a trap so that they won't suspect you." Lu Hong's heart was tired. "You have nothing to do, right? Must you give me some trouble?" Leaning against the sofa, Lu Hong's heart was tired as he said, "If you have something to say, say it. If you have nothing to say, leave early." Su Yu smiled and said, "If there's something, of course there's something to say. It's like this. I've set up an extermination society and would like to invite teacher to join. Is teacher interested?" Lu Hong was speechless. "Are you crazy or am I crazy? What committee to exterminate the order? Are you F*** kidding me? You came here in the middle of the night just to tease me?" "I'm serious." Su Yu said seriously, "I've really formed a committee to exterminate the order, and I've invited many people to join. There are already many people who have joined. Of course, the name is just a form of address. I want to invite teacher to join now. What do you think, teacher?" Lu Hong felt that the current Su Yu was very baffling. "Are you crazy? Setting up an extermination society and then inviting me to join? What does that mean? He even openly invited me in front of Pavilion Master Sun and the others, causing Lu Hong to be a little confused. Extermination society. Invited me?" Lu Hong couldn't help but laugh. "Is there any benefit?" "Of course there is." Su Yu said seriously, "Work together to build a harmonious and civilized university, eliminate some negative influences, and cut off some malignant tumors. This way, the civilized university will be able to develop well." Lu Hong really felt that Su Yu had gone crazy. "Is this something you can think about?" What do you mean by this? He was already feeling a little depressed. Suyu did not waste any more words. He left behind a voice transmission talisman and said with a smile, "Teacher, I have invited you. Please take care of me in the future." After saying that, Suyu stood up and turned around to leave. Lu Hong blinked his eyes in bewilderment. F***ck. What the hell? You came here to leave a voice transmission talisman for me and then ask me to join some extermination society, and then it's gone. It's gone just like that. A headache. Lu Hong didn't move. After Suyu left, the door opened. A moment later, Pavilion Master Sun walked in and looked at the voice transmission talisman on the table, then at Lu Hong. Lu Hong also had a depressed look on his face. He stood up and said respectfully, "Elder Sun, I don't know what he meant. He left a voice transmission talisman and left. He said that he wanted me to join some extermination society." "Elder Sun, what did he mean?" Elder Sun waved his hand and took the voice transmission talisman. After looking at it for a while, he frowned slightly. It was empty and there was no message left. He threw the voice transmission talisman to Lu Hong and said with a frown, "What do you think he meant? He should know that someone will be here tonight. He said this deliberately to scare us. Then, he said, or is it true that someone really joined this extermination society?" Lu Hong smiled bitterly, "Elder Sun, this is probably his goal. He's making us paranoid and suspicious of others. We feel that many people have joined this so-called extermination society. In reality, I'm afraid that it's just a child's play. We can't take his words seriously." He felt that he had vaguely grasped some of Suyu's thoughts. He was deliberately making them suspect each other. What extermination society? **T, whether there was such a meeting or not was a problem. No. At the next moment, Lu Hong's heart thumped. Could there really be such a meeting? For example, his stupid disciple couldn't have joined in, right? Pavilion Master Sun also frowned and thought for a moment. It's possible. It's just a feint to make us panic. As he said that, the voice transmission talisman flickered slightly. Lu Hong looked at Elder Sunday. Elder Sun frowned and said, "Look." Lu Hong hurriedly picked up the voice transmission talisman and looked at it. This voice transmission talisman was somewhat special. It was a kind of multi-person voice transmission talisman, and it could also be used by a single person. You're tuning into the Han Lee's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 827. Chapter 827, Chapter 206, First Meeting with the 10,000 Heavenly Saints 2. At this moment, there was a message displayed on it. 9 heavens, it seems that a new person has joined. Welcome, new person. I am 9 heavens, heaven and earth are mysterious and yellow. New person can simply add a word or number at the back, don't use your real name. Earth 7, there is a new person joining, a new contact point has been added. Earth 12, welcome new people. The mission of Extermination Society is very simple, to build a harmonious and civilized academy. If new people have any doubts, they can ask us at any time. Of course, some secrets need to be bought with extermination points. Lu Hong's face was dull as he handed the voice transmission talisman to Pavilion Elder Sunday. Pavilion Elder Sun quickly looked at it and then checked it. The divine text flickered. After a while, he shook his head and said, "We can't trace it. It's a specially made voice transmission talisman. Unless we have everyone in the prefecture capital transmit their voices in silence, we can't trace it." Lu Hong was somewhat dull as he said, "Elder Sun, do you think it's real or fake?" So many people had appeared all of a sudden. What did he mean? What was going on? He was confused now. Pavilion Master Sun frowned and said in a deep voice, "Is there really such an organization? I've never heard of it. Is Suyu trying to distract us?" Lu Hong shook his head. He couldn't guarantee it. The Great Xia Institute of Civilization was getting more and more complicated. Give them a fake name and join them. Regardless of whether it's real or fake, remember to keep an eye on them. Pay attention to their communication and see if you can find anything. Also, report to me anytime. Pavilion Master Sun was also having a headache. He had also thought that it was fake before, but now, it was really hard to say. What exactly was going on? Did such an organization really exist in the academy? Extermination Society? Was it Suyu himself who deliberately deceived them, or, it felt more like he was deceiving them? Otherwise, that fellow wouldn't have openly sent a voice transmission talisman to Lu Hong. One mountain and sea, one soaring into the sky. At this moment, Suyu was giving him a headache. Soon, Elder Sun said calmly, whether it's true or not, just pay attention to it. There's no need to waste too much energy. Suyu might have been ordered by someone to deliberately divert our attention to other things. There are a lot of people who are secretly dissatisfied with us. Even so, so what? Elder Sun, why don't you take this? Lu Hong, on the other hand, felt that it was hot. I don't want this voice transmission talisman. Elder Sun frowned and said, take it yourself. I may not have the time to pay attention to this thing every day, so don't miss any news. Also, don't spread it out, lest it causes panic among the others. The academy suddenly had an extermination society. If this was known by the other people of the Divine Language Department, it might cause some trouble. It couldn't be any more chaotic. The current Pavilion Master Sun was also having a headache. Recently, things hadn't been going smoothly. Lu Hong said with a bitter smile, all right then, Elder Sun, you have to testify for me. I didn't join any extermination society. Moreover, it's hard to say if any such society exists or not. Don't worry, I'm not that stupid. Pavilion Master Sun comforted him once again. There was no need to doubt anyone over such a small matter, even though, he did have some small doubts in his heart about whether a group of people from the academy had joined. However, he couldn't say this. If he said it, he would be asking for trouble. They were having a headache. Suyu was having a great time. Opening a SMUF account was really fun. He had gotten Lu Hong to send a voice transmission talisman and created some sort of extermination guild. It was just a casual trick. This was something Suyu had specially created based on the situation of the Multi-Divine Language faction. The Multi-Divine Language faction suspected that there was an invincible traitor. They were paranoid and did not feel too assured about all the invincible factions. They didn't dare to say anything. They were afraid of causing trouble, and they were also afraid that someone was watching them from the shadows. In any case, they were having a hard time. Based on this, Suyu set up an extermination society. On one hand, it was to disgust people, and on the other hand, it was to cover up the existence of the association and give it a cover. In the academy, there were many people who used voice transmission talismans, but it was not normal for students to use them. Once people like Lin Yao used them and were discovered, it was easy for others to see some clues. Suyu had already planned that from tomorrow onwards, he would send out hundreds or even thousands of voice transmission talismans. Although this item was not cheap to build, he could still find Grandmaster and Uncle Master to help him. It was just a small amount of money, only a few hundred merit points. When that time came, everyone would have won, so the voice transmission talismans would not be too conspicuous. Not only that, the people who obtained the voice transmission talismans might be considered as members of the Extermination Society in the eyes of the single Divine Text Department. That would be fun. Let those fellows doubt themselves. Doubt everyone. Could it be that they still dared to check everyone's voice transmission talisman? Even the Inspector General's office did not have the qualifications. Those who truly wanted to join the association were in a different system. As for the Extermination Society, they could just play with it. They could spend dozens of minutes a day opening countless accounts and chatting with those fools. They could just treat it as a day of relaxation. Lu Hong was one of them. If Pavilion Master Sun wanted to join, Suyu wouldn't mind chatting with him. I'm such a genius. Suyu secretly said in his heart, I'm really a genius. Perhaps it would really be of some use. It would make those guys lose their footing. It would be more fun if they suspected that the people around them were all traitors. Other than making them lose their footing and disguising the existence of the association, Suyu also had other plans. Suyu was still very impatient with the divine runes alone. Now that he was suppressing the younger generation, they didn't dare to show themselves. However, Suyu guaranteed that trouble would continue once they were in the air. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 828. Chapter 828, Chapter 206 First Meeting with Wan Tianxing 3. The best way to solve the problem is to eradicate the root of the problem. It's not here at the university, but somewhere else. Suyu sighed. It has nothing to do with me. I can't care about these things. Those things are too far away from me, including flying in the air. Actually, they have nothing to do with me. Fortunately, I have a big boss in the university. Suyu knew that the 10,000 heavenly saints was his life-saving asset in the academy. Without the 10,000 heavenly saints, outside the academy, he would have long been slapped to death for offending Elder Sun and the others time and time again. How dare you compete with the mountains and seas? I'll kill you with a slap. The big boss is my life-saving asset. As for Hong Tan and the others, grandmasters were strong, but they couldn't suppress the single divine pros faction. Not to mention grandmasters, even if Teacher Lu displayed the strength to suppress the sun and moon, he still couldn't suppress the other party. The single divine pros faction wasn't weak. Suyu tidied up his clothes. His white clothes were as white as snow, and there was a gentle smile on his face. It was in line with the attitude of a civilized master. Only then did he walk toward the Heart Cultivation Pavilion. Our beloved Manor Head One shouldn't have rested yet. I wonder what the powerful Manor Head One wants to say to me. Manor Head One has a myriad of affairs to attend to every day, yet he still remembers a mere student. It is truly a blessing in 3 lifetimes. Suyu thought silently in his heart. That's right, it was in this state. That day, Xia Shower had already seen through him and criticized him in his heart. He had actually knocked him unconscious. How hateful. Heart Cultivation Pavilion. Wan Tianxing didn't have his own courtyard. He didn't live anywhere else but in the Heart Cultivation Pavilion. This was also the choice made by the previous generation of prefects. The Heart Cultivation Pavilion had a total of 36 floors. It was very tall and was the tallest building in the academy. Wan Tianxing lived on the 35th floor, not the 36th floor. In front of the Heart Cultivation Pavilion, a team of guards stood guard. The guards of the academy were still very strong. Even if Suyu couldn't tell the strength of the other party, he could tell that the weakest of the guards was flying in the air. Perhaps there was even a Lingyun realm existence. The guard on duty checked Suyu's student ID card and seemed to have communicated with someone for a while. Very quickly, he nodded and said, "Go in. Don't wander around. Follow the stairs and directly walk to the end of the office of the governor." "Thank you, big brother." Suyu thanked them with a shy face. The guards glanced at him and didn't say anything. Wan Tianxing rarely summoned students. They didn't know why he suddenly summoned Suyu. Of course, they wouldn't guess what the head of the academy was thinking. Suyu. They knew this guy. Although he had a sweet smile, he wasn't a kind person. He was also very cunning. Suyu walked all the way up. He did not linger and continued to mutter in his heart. As he walked, he felt as if he had walked into another world. Suyu's vision blurred. He realized that he had returned to the academy, outside the heart cultivation pavilion. However, it was still different. Everywhere, there were broken walls. The Great Xia Civilization Academy had changed. Corpses were strewn all over the place, and blood flowed like a river. In the surroundings, students were frantically fleeing. Su Yu's expression kept changing. An illusion? Impossible. Just a moment ago, the Institute of Civilization was still so quiet, and there were many experts in the institute. How could it be possible for someone to suddenly attack and kill so many people? And at this moment, an explosion sounded from the sky. Su Yu's expression changed. In the sky, the figures of Chen Yong, Hong Tan, and Bai Feng appeared one after another. Kill! Kill! Hong Tan was killing, Chen Yong was killing, and Bai Feng was killing. No. There was still himself. Su Yu's expression completely changed. He was also killing, and it could be vaguely seen that he was the core of these people. Or rather, he was the one who started the killing first, which led to the people from the polytheistic faction taking action one after another. Bang! The sound of explosions rang out, and corpses fell to the ground. Blood splattered everywhere. In the air, Su Yu was still wearing a white robe, but it was stained with blood. He was crazily slaughtering the students and researchers who were escaping. At this moment, a huge hand covered the sky. Bang! A loud sound could be heard. Su Yu's vision blurred again, and he woke up again. In front of him was a door. The wooden door opened, and at the end of the door was a floor-to-ceiling window. An old man was sitting on a chair and reading a book. He was smiling as he looked at Su Yu. And Su Yu looked at his palm. That look was extremely similar to the palm that killed all of them in the end. Su Yu's heart trembled. But he did not dare to ask further. He bowed and said, "Greetings, Principal. Stand up." Wan Tianqing's voice was calm, and he said with a slight smile, "Do you see it?" "I see it. That is the future." Wan Tianqing said with a faint smile, "One of the thousands of futures, and the one that suits your current state of mind the most. Everyone sees different things, but what you see may not be the same as what I see." Wan Tianqing's voice was gentle. "What you see represents the future that you hope for the most. Do you still like it?" Su Yu was silent. "What I saw was my future. How is that possible? Would I raise my butcher's knife and slaughter all living beings in the academy before being killed? Would I even implicate Grandmaster, Master, and the others? Is this my future? No. I don't believe it." Wan Tianqing said leisurely, "It's just one of the many possibilities. Don't take it to heart. Mannerhead, were you the one who brought me to see the future?" "Not really, this passage is full of all kinds of magical things. All the previous mansion masters have lived here. A large group of mountains and seas, the sun and the moon often gather here. We're fine, but you're too weak. You might see something." Wan Tianqing smiled. Su Yu looked at him. He was a very amiable old man, at least that was what he looked like. His silver hair draped over his shoulders, and he wore a long green robe. He held a book in his hand, and his eyes were full of wisdom. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 829. Chapter 829, Chapter 206, The First Meeting with Wan Tianqing 4. Wan Tianqing was also looking at him. After looking at him for a while, he chuckled and said, "There is karma today, and there will be karma in the future. Can you understand the cycle of karma?" Su Yu said in a deep voice, "You have also said that there will only be karma if there is karma. If there really is such a scene in the future, it is also because others have gone too far. I entered the academy with the heart of a fist. Because of my father, I entered the academy with the heart of serving the human race. When I met the members of the myriad races, I would definitely kill them. Because I worshipped Manor Head Xia. They said that the Great Xia Civilization Academy was in chaos. My first teacher, Lu Laoshi, told me that chaos was within the rules. I thought that this was a holy land, a holy land. Even if it was chaotic, it wouldn't affect me. But I was wrong. From the first day I stepped into the academy, I knew that I was wrong. Su Yu looked straight at Wan Tiansheng. Principal, if this is the pure land and holy land in my heart, then I think that the scene in the future might really happen. Wan Tiansheng said indifferently, everything is up to you. You chose your own path. That single divine language faction rampaged and did all kinds of evil. Don't you deserve to be punished? Wan Tiansheng was still calm. That's why there are consequences. Just like in the past when the multi-divine language faction dominated the field of civilized masters, in the end, they also suffered consequences. Su Yu did not agree with this statement. He felt that Wan Tiansheng was just messing around and trying to smooth things over. The polytheistic faction was not a consequence. The fifth-generation prefect and the others died in battle on the heavenly battlefield. They fought with the enemy and killed Invincible. If this is considered a consequence, then there is no one in this world who has not done evil. Wan Tiansheng said indifferently, he has done evil. He didn't do evil. He could have gone to the Tao by himself. Why would he implicate so many people? He didn't do evil. He could have just passed on the divine arts to the academy. Why would he pass it on to Lu Wenyan? He had harmed Lu Wenyan for 50 years. If he didn't do evil, that Invincible of the Great Zhou Mansion wouldn't have died. There would be no retribution later on. There are some things that you understand differently when you look at them from different angles. Wan Tiansheng said indifferently, that fallen Invincible son of the Great Zhou Manor is called Zhou Polong. His father died because of 5 generations, and he came to take revenge on all of you. Does that count as karma? Su Yu frowned and said, saving him on the battlefield and dying, what kind of evil is that? But the 5 generations said themselves that they don't need the help of others. Wan Tiansheng said indifferently, he went back on his word. He volunteered himself, thinking that he could sweep across the heavens, sweep across the Invincible, but he failed, so he asked for help, causing that person to die. Does that count as his evil? Su Yu was speechless. Was it considered? At this moment, he did not know. Wan Tiansheng smiled and said, this is the evil of human nature. Look at you, you don't dare to say it anymore. It's hard to say. Then let me ask you, among the 1,000 men guards where your father was, one of the centurions did not listen to you and was extremely overbearing. He insisted on going out to provoke the enemy. We agreed that no one needed to care about him and he could deal with it himself. In the end, he was ambushed and he asked for help again. Your father went to save him and fell. Do you hate that centurion who was looking for trouble? Hate. Su Yu replied in a low voice. Wan Tiansheng laughed again, this is human nature. Shouldn't Zhou Polong hate all of you? His father is an invincible expert who is immortal. Even though this immortal is somewhat discounted, it shouldn't be a problem for him to live for 1,000 years. In the end, he died. How could he not hate? Su Yu was speechless. So, you have no reason to blame him for hating all of you. As for suppressing all of you. Wan Tiansheng smiled and said, it's the same example as before. Your father is dead, and so is that centurion. You should hate him, but since he's dead, you can't be bothered to care about him. However, you're a big shot. Your subordinates figured out your intentions and felt that you wanted to target his descendants, so they went to suppress his descendants. If you knew, would you step forward to stop them? Su Yu didn't say a word. Would he? The other party had caused the death of his father. It was already good enough that he didn't personally find fault with him. He was already magnanimous. As for others going to suppress his descendants, do I have to step forward to stop them? Am I that kind-hearted? Wan Tianqing smiled again and said, this is human nature. If you hate Zhou Mingren and the others, then that's fine. If you hate others, then you're venting your anger. The human realm isn't as evil as you think. There's always a debtor and a debtor. Don't randomly implicate others. Su Yu looked at Wan Tianqing and said in puzzlement, does the principal want me to not hate Zhou Polong? Is there? Wan Tianqing smiled faintly and said, do you have the right to hate someone with your temperament? Zhou Polong could spit you to death even if he took a breath. Don't overestimate yourself. I just want to say that in the academy, you can retaliate against anyone who targets you, but don't implicate others. Not everyone is willing to bear things that they shouldn't. As he said this, he smiled and said, slaughtering the academy, is that your choice? Cleaning the academy, is that your decision? If that's the case, why don't you go find the source, Zhou Polong, and settle the score? If you kill him, wouldn't that be the end of it? Speaking of which, it's also a form of bullying the weak and fearing the strong, right? And the source of Zhou Polong is the great Zhou King. If you just kill the great Zhou King, wouldn't that be the end of it? Why do you want to slaughter the others? Su Yu fell silent and fell into deep thought. Wan Tianqing said leisurely, there are many things that have a reason. It's not that you think that you are right. You may be thinking, why didn't the principal suppress the single divine one faction and let the multi-divine one faction be bullied? Wan Tianqing smiled and said, then why didn't anyone suppress the multi-divine one faction when your multi-divine one faction was strong and let the single divine one faction take a breather? You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 830. Chapter 830, Chapter 206, Meeting Wan Tianqing for the first time 5. Su Yu frowned and said, but now, it's no longer a simple suppression. They want to kill people, open up a war zone, dig graves, and even kill my senior sister. Principal, is this still a competition? The competition a few years ago was considered normal, but now? Su Yu felt that Wan Tianqing was just trying to smooth things over. Wan Tianqing said faintly, did you kill your people? Did you dig up the grave? Is your senior sister dead? That's because we're strong. Su Yu didn't even finish his sentence. Wan Tianqing said leisurely, strong? Do you really think that the single divine text department isn't strong? There are many people in the single divine text department who are at the sun-moon tier. There are even people who have stepped into the invincible tier. Although it's only the physical body department. Where do you get the right to say that you're strong? They have a physical body that has entered the invincible tier. Su Yu was astonished. Wan Tianqing said leisurely, could it be that those who have entered the exploration tier have all advanced in the beast-taming tier? The divine pill tier advanced. What's so strange about that? Not to mention the single divine one faction, there are many other divine one factions as well. Why didn't they show up? If they showed up, could it be that a battle of invincibility would erupt? Wan Tianqing said with a faint smile, there are some things that aren't what you think. Your people didn't die, but you guys are powerful. Wrong, there are people who are biased. For example, the Xia family, Ji Hong. They also feel that the single divine one faction has passed the past few years, so they taught them a lesson, including Xing Yiming's injury. Could it be an accident? Wan Tianqing said indifferently, if you cross the line, you will be punished. No one is an exception on this point. In the past few decades, who died in your faction? In normal competition, you can't compete with others. Do you want me to intervene and help you? Su Yu suddenly felt speechless. It seemed to be like this. So, recently, the single divine prose faction had crossed the line, so they had suffered a series of punishments. In the battle zone, Ji Hong had made a move, Lord Xiaohou and the others had made a move, and Wan Tianxing had also made a move on the academy's side. This was why the single Divine Pros faction kept losing. It seemed that this was indeed the case. Otherwise, just Hong Tan and the others might not have been able to win the battle. Su Yu sneaked a glance at the 10,000 heavenly saints. Was the manor head explaining all this to him in order to explain to the great Xia manor? It wasn't that they didn't want to help, it wasn't that they didn't want to interfere. It was that everything that had happened before was in accordance with the rules. When the Divine Pros faction was strong, it was also suppressing the living space of the other factions. Now, when the divine runes were no longer in accordance with the rules, they were under intense suppression. Su Yu seemed to understand, but he also didn't seem to understand. Was this a warning to me, or to remind the entire multi-divine runes faction not to use any extra tricks? Just as he was thinking, Wan Tianxing said leisurely, "Don't think too much. I'm just telling you, isn't it good to be alive? Don't use your intelligence elsewhere. With this time, isn't it good to outline a few more divine runes?" Su Yu said directly, "I don't have money or resources, and the academy doesn't give me anything. I have to fight for it myself. But if I leave the academy, I might be killed by others. I've thought about it, and I can only pluck feathers from the single divine runes. Otherwise, I'm not a parasite. In the past, when I lacked merit points, it was because I went on missions to kill enemies. Now, I don't even dare to go out." Su Yu was also straightforward. "If the single Divine One faction doesn't target me, I might even go out on missions. I won't bother with you guys. But now, I'm afraid of death. If I go out, I'm afraid I won't be able to come back. With this kind of worry, how would I dare to go out on missions? Even the last time I heard about Tian. Su Yu instantly restrained all his thoughts. "Be careful. Perhaps the principal might sense it. I didn't think of anything. The manor head is really handsome, amazing, domineering, and awesome." Wan Tianxing looked at him with a smile on his face. This was interesting. It was no wonder that he would be able to battle mountains and seas in the future. Although it was only a possibility, it seemed like the possibility was very high. This fellow was indeed outstanding and powerful. His luck wasn't bad either. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 831. Chapter 831, Chapter 207, I Understand. 1. Wan Tianxing did not continue the topic from before. He quickly smiled and said, "You're really cautious. The last time I looked for you, it must have been a long time since today. You waited for Hong Tan to return before coming here. Are you afraid that I'll harm you?" No. Su Yu said honestly, "Principal has misunderstood. I'm afraid that I'll cause trouble for Principal. Previously, Grandmaster did not return. Principal summoned me. I saw it and thought that it was a misunderstanding by the single divine script department. They thought that Principal was favoring me." Wan Tianxing smiled. He slowly stood up, and Su Yu's vision blurred. Wan Tianxing had already arrived in front of him. "Su Yu. Do you know why I'm looking for you?" "I don't know." Su Yu lowered his head and didn't dare to look at him. "Old man. Cough cough, the powerful Principal Wan was really too powerful. Too powerful." Wan Tianxing chuckled. "I want to do a small experiment. You're the best material." Su Yu's heart tightened. "Are you afraid?" No. Manor head is wise and divine." Wan Tianxing chuckled. "Wise and divine. You've scolded me a lot in your heart, haven't you?" "I don't dare." "It's not that I don't dare, but it's not that I don't dare, right?" "No." Su Yu had a headache. Why was he struggling with these words? Wan Tiansheng laughed again. Su Yu felt his heart go numb from the laughter. What was he trying to do? It's a good thing. Wan Tiansheng said indifferently, you've sketched out quite a lot of divine runes. Now you have 7, right? Su Yu was slightly surprised and nodded, yes. All of them are human. Yes. So you can only sketch out the divine runes of the human race? This, Prefect, No need to explain. Wan Tiansheng said indifferently, you have your own opportunities. As you said to Zhou Pingxing before, every expert has their own opportunities and inheritances. As for me, I'm not interested in your opportunities. Wan Tianxing said, then he smiled and said, if that's the case, then that's great. Actually, even if I don't say it, you can only outline the human divine language. But I still have to say that it's best to only outline the human divine language. Hong Tan is also a person close to the sun and moon. He should have said that the alien divine language is somewhat repelled by advancing to the sun and moon, right? Su Yu nodded. Actually, it wasn't Hong Tan who said it. Bai Feng had already made such a guess long ago. Of course, there was no need to mention it. Wan Tianxing continued, there might be some problems with the 10,000 races divine prose, including the human race's divine prose. However, I still want to try and see the results. The results? Su Yu couldn't help but say, Principal, you mean? Do you know that up until now, no one has advanced to the sun and moon because the main divine prose is the human race's divine prose? Su Yu nodded. He knew this. The human race did not have an eternal divine language, and the eternal divine language could actually be said to be a sun and moon divine language. In other words, no human had relied on the human divine language to advance to the sun and moon level. In the 5th generation, there seemed to be a few human divine languages that had advanced to the sun and moon divine language. However, it was not a main divine language, and it had relied on divine language battle techniques to advance successfully. It was not a single human divine language that had advanced. Wan Tianxing said indifferently, I'm thinking, once the human divine script advances to the eternal divine script, will it be very powerful? Su Yu hesitated and said, Prefect, you don't have any human divine script that has advanced to the eternal divine script. Wan Tianxing was definitely very powerful. Wan Tianxing smiled and said, I'm not talking about the eternity that you imagine, but the true eternity. The eternity that you understand should be defined as the sun-moon divine script. Su Yu did not say anything. What he meant was that Wan Tianxing actually had a human sun-moon divine text. As expected, he was at least a sun-moon expert. Moreover, the human divine text should not be his main divine text. He had already advanced to the sun-moon realm, and there was another 5th generation. Terrifying. It seemed that there was only a 5th generation divine text, and the human divine text had advanced to the sun-moon realm. Then, you mean? Cultivate well. Wan Tianxing's eyes were deep as he looked at him and said, very good. Your divine runes battle technique outlines a lot of divine runes. I'm thinking about one thing. When dozens of human divine runes fuse together, will you be able to break through the boundary? Su Yu was shocked. He maintained his composure on the surface and said, Manor Head, I have a lot of divine runes as the foundation for my divine runes battle technique, but I'm not as good as the 5th generation Manor Head. Is that so? Wan Tianxing said faintly, then I might have sensed wrongly. Since you don't have much divine runes sketched out and have no value to nurture, you can leave now. Su Yu turned around and left. Then I'll leave. I'm afraid that if I stay with you, I won't feel any privacy. How terrifying. Wan Tianxing. I've been slapped in the face. You know what I'm going to say next, even though I didn't say it out loud. If there's a lot of divine texts sketched out, then it's worth nurturing. I just didn't finish my sentence. Are you really leaving? This is the first time he's been slapped in the face by a student. Without saying a word, Suyu walked on, stunned. He was still at his original spot, the myriad heaven sage was still in front of him, and he was almost stuck to this old man. Cough cough, stuck to the myriad manor head. Suyu swallowed his saliva and nervously took a step back. He said awkwardly, Wan Tianxing, that. Wan Tianxing looked at him for a while and said with a faint smile, don't be nervous, Suyu. I just want to see the potential of the human race. I can actually find someone else, but you are very suitable. I can't be bothered to find someone else. Head Prefect. Suyu suppressed the palpitations in his heart and said with a dry smile, then what do I need to do? Sketch the divine text as soon as possible and complete the divine text battle technique. Wan Tianxing said indifferently, don't waste time on small matters. These students of the Great Xia Civilization Academy were just a corner of the myriad worlds. There were countless experts and geniuses in the myriad worlds. It was meaningless to keep fighting. I have long arranged the following itinerary for you people. If you want to fight, if you want to kill, there's no need for you to stay in the academy. The Celestial's Myriad God Manor and the Devil's Purgatory of the myriad worlds are the places where you should fight and display your strength. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 832. Chapter 832, Chapter 207 I understand, 2. No money. As soon as Suyu finished speaking, Wan Tianxing smiled faintly and said, no money? Then do you want me to confiscate those dozens of Will's articles from you? Suyu cursed in his heart, forget it, give up. What did he mean by that? If he didn't give him any benefits, what he meant was that he wanted him to cultivate. Don't get involved, what was he doing? If I don't get involved, I can't go out and do missions. Are you trying to suffocate me to death? If I don't have any resources and no way out, am I just going to wait for death? Wan Tianxing smiled faintly and said, you can't chew too much. First, digest your own gains first. If you really want to go out and do missions, then go and do it. For now, don't go to the celestial battlefield. Where else can you not go? But. Suyu said worriedly, then if I go out, once I leave the city and someone kills me, then what should I do? My teacher is leaving, Grandmaster is going into closed-door cultivation, and Martial Uncle can't leave. That means that you're destined to die. Suyu was speechless and somewhat angry. Even though he knew that the person he was facing was Myriad Heaven Sage, an expert who seemed to have the power of the sun and the moon. He couldn't help but be a little angry as he said, Head Prefect, in that case, according to your opinion, I can't compete with the single Divine One faction. Should I just wait for death? He felt that Wan Tianxing was here to pick a fight today. Although he didn't know why he was picking a fight with a person who was cultivating his character. However, you didn't allow me to fight, you didn't give me any benefits, and you still want me to go out and earn my own living. Am I the sun and the moon of the mountains and seas? Wan Tianxing smiled. Anxious? Young man, you're just impatient. Suyu didn't say anything. I feel that I'm very patient. I didn't say that I don't want you to fight. Fighting is good for your progress. I'm just reminding you, don't forget what you're after. Wan Tianxing smiled. Strengthen yourself. Be it a civilized master or a warrior, their ultimate goal is to strengthen themselves. Be it researching cultivation techniques or deciphering civilization, I just hope that you don't blindly dive into it. As for going out to do missions, it's also a form of self-tempering. In this way, I can promise that no one will attack you in the mountains and seas, any time. How about it? Suyu rolled his eyes. Stop fooling around. I'm just cultivating my character, why do I still need the mountains and seas? He could kill me with a single leap. Wan Tianxing smiled again and said, don't your research institute have a few demonic beasts? Hong Tan has already applied for a mount slot, why don't you take it out and use it? Take a leap earlier, don't waste too much time on trivial matters, time is running out. What was running out? Su Yu heard the key point. He couldn't help but look at Wan Tiansheng. Wan Tiansheng did not look at him. He walked to the window and looked out, he sighed. The human realm is actually quite peaceful. The war between the heavens and the 10,000 worlds may be said to be the decline of the human race, but in reality, the human race is not weak. The most dangerous time was actually more than 300 years ago, when the 10,000 worlds invaded. At that time, it was really dangerous. At that time, the human realm was united. Therefore, many invincible realm experts appeared during that period. More than 300 years ago, they defeated the other party. After that, the human realm actually continued to decline. Decline? Su Yu said in puzzlement, I don't think so. What do you know? Myriad Heaven Sage said indifferently, more than 300 years ago, dozens of invincible realm experts appeared in the human realm. More than 300 years later, there were very few new invincible realm experts. It was pitifully few. Many of the human race's invincible realm experts died. In the end, the number of new invincible realm experts didn't even fall. It's the same for undefeatable figures, and it's the same for the sun and moon. This situation has been going on for many years. No one is stupid. In fact, many people have already seen through it, which is why there is a competition among the various manners. They want to unite their strength and unite their human realm to see if they can focus on facing the outside world and produce more undefeatable figures. Su Yu scratched his head. He felt that he was really far away from them, so there was no point in Principal One telling him all this. Wan Tianxing smiled and said, it's meaningful. Listen to me. Some experts in the human realm wanted to change the current situation, but some other experts had different ideas. Do you know that some people even proposed an idea? What? No more invincible experts in the human realm. Su Yu was stunned. What did he mean? Because the human race is already very strong, and they pose a threat to powerful gods and demons. Wan Tianxing said faintly, therefore, now that the human race has an invincible expert, they will be attacked and stopped by the 10,000 races. A great war will break out, just like the 5 generations of the past. Therefore, some people say that if we maintain the current situation, there is no need for a new invincible expert to appear. We need to maintain restraint and maintain a balance with the 10,000 races. As long as we maintain the current situation, we can usher in a long-term peace. Su Yu said in a daze, isn't this giving up eating because of choking? Because the myriad clans are afraid, we don't need to send out any more experts. Is this a fool? Wan Tianxing sighed, is it a fool? Perhaps you will think so. But if I were to tell you that every time a new generation of invincibility is born, it might lead to the death of a powerful invincibility, do you think it's still a fool? Why? 10,000 heavenly saints sighed again, because of the obstruction of the 10,000 races. Every time they advance to invincible, a big battle will break out, and almost every time, an invincible will fall. The new invincible might succeed, but it might cause the invincible of the older generation to fall. It's the same every time. 10,000 heavenly saints sighed, this is the strategy of the 10,000 races. They don't attack the human realm by force, but are wasting the strength of the human realm. If you become invincible, we will attack together. If you become invincible, we will attack you. We will scare your human race so much that no one else dares to advance. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 833. Chapter 833, Chapter 207 I understand now. Chiu subscribe, 3. Su Yu gritted his teeth and said, is this to trap us and make us tie our hands and feet, waiting for death? Yes. Wan Tianxing nodded, he smiled and said, that's exactly what I mean. However, this is also the truth. Think about it, can those invincible seniors withstand such a loss? One new generation, one human death, almost every time, say, at this time, do they think that they don't need anyone else to become invincible? Is that still considered stupid? Su Yu was speechless. Stupid? It was hard for him to say. Was it worth it to exchange the invincible lives of the older generation for the invincible lives of the new generation? It was easy for him to say that. According to his thoughts, he would naturally go all out. However, the invincible lives of the older generation were also lives. Moreover, they were a group of heroes who fought for the human race against the 10,000 races back then. At this moment, they didn't want anyone else to die. Could it be understood? It was understandable. However, Su Yu could not help but say, if this continues, the human race will not be able to take over. Sooner or later, something will happen. Right, so now, with the great Zhou King's group as the leader, they are preparing to activate the suppression power of the human realm. This is one way to deal with it. Wan Tianxing smiled and said, the unrivaled fate of the older generation is also a dilemma for both sides. What should we do? Should we continue, or should we just stand still and endure it? Su Yu was puzzled. Then, if we, the invincible human race, fall, we can't kill the other side's people. Yes. Wan Tianxing nodded and said, don't underestimate the invincible experts of the older generation. Usually, even if we die in battle, we can take one or two of them with us. However, there are too many races that are hostile to us, and there are also many invincible races. It's not worth it. Why do they insist on invading the human realm? Wan Tianxing smiled and said, because it's worth it. The human realm is a treasure land. You will understand it sooner or later. The human realm is actually not big. It hasn't been long since it rose up. However, the number of invincible races born by the human race is no less than that of the god and devil races. It's just that their foundations are not that deep. Other than that, there are also some other reasons. Let's not talk about this. After saying that, Wan Tianxing said again, do you know why the 5th prefecture head died? Su Yu was speechless. How would I know? However, after thinking for a while, he said, it's because the myriad clans are afraid that we'll give birth to unrivaled civilized masters. My grandmaster said that unrivaled civilized masters are much stronger than unrivaled physical bodies. One can defeat several of them. Idiot. Wan Tianxing directly scolded, Hong Tan is an idiot. What does he know? Su Yu was depressed. I can't refute what he said. What are you trying to say? Wan Tianxing looked at him and said in a low voice, the death of 5 generations only proves one thing. You said that the many divine inscriptions faction was suppressed and no one came forward. In fact, there was indeed a group of people who were secretly adding fuel to the fire. Su Yu's head hurt even more. Why are you telling me all this? I know a lot, and I will die very quickly. I'm just letting you know the priority. Wan Tianxing said indifferently, let me put it this way. In my judgment, what is the biggest use of an invincible realm civilized master? It is to activate the suppressive power of the human realm. Do you understand? Do you understand? Su Yu was stunned. Wan Tianxing said calmly, this is the key. The 5th generation died because of this. The polytheistic civilization was suppressed because of this. I told you before that there are some people who hope to maintain the peace for a few more years. Therefore, the existence of the polytheistic civilization is actually the key to the opening of the War of 10,000 Worlds. Once someone from the polytheistic civilization advances to an unrivaled civilized master, the war will break out very soon. Why do you think those people are targeting the 5th generation and Lu Wenyan? Do you think it's because they're worried about the emergence of an unrivaled master? Do you really think it's because the unrivaled master level is more powerful? It's all bullshit. The 10,000 heavenly saints said coldly, it's because the multiple divine languages faction, or the civilized master faction, cannot produce an unrivaled master level. It's that simple. The moment the invincible appears, it will be the start of a war that will engulf the entire world. If the human realm has the power to suppress them, will those powerful races who want to enter the human realm agree? You have to understand what I mean. The great Zhou King may not be against the 5th generation, or else his younger brother would not have had to save the 5th generation. Remember. Su Yu was stunned. Holy shit. What did he mean? He understood, but his heart shuddered. He swallowed his saliva. You mean, not just one person, but a group of people. In order to prevent the war from erupting now, they can't let the people from the multiple divine languages branch witness the Tao. They can't even let the people from the multiple divine languages branch show the possibility of attaining the Tao, thus causing the war of 10,000 races to erupt ahead of time. Now you understand. Wan Tianxing smiled. I told you not to jump too hard, but you refused to listen. Lu Wenyan, Hong Tan, and the others, to be honest. In my opinion, the chance of being invincible is not great, but you have some hope. So don't jump randomly. Do you really think that your Grandmaster and the others are idiots? They have more or less felt a sense of crisis. Even if they don't know the specific situation, they can still feel the general sense of crisis. That's why they have been lying low all these years. Su Yu was in a trance. Is that so? Then, he couldn't help but look at Wan Tianxing again. However, according to what Grandmaster said in private, this war in the war zone might have something to do with this person. Since you can't expose yourself, what are you scheming? Aren't you contradicting yourself? Wan Tianxing smiled, don't think about it anymore. Some things are even more complicated than you think. It has been 50 years. In the eyes of many people, Lu Wenyan and Hong Tan are already hopeless and invincible. At this time, properly displaying your strength is also a way to preserve the many divine runes. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 834. Chapter 834, Chapter 207, I Get It, 4. Su Yu didn't say anything. He felt that Wan Tianxing had said too much to him. So much that he was a little scared. I don't want to know so much. I'm just cultivating my character. Among the humans' invincibility, there was a group of people who were delaying the full outbreak of the war. Therefore, this group of people could only watch helplessly as the multi-god language faction was suppressed. This was because there might be people in the multi-god language faction who could become unrivaled civilized masters. This led to the imminent arrival of a great war. There was also a group of people who did not wish for the newcomers to become undefeatable. This would also lead to the death of the older generation's undefeatable. And the group of people led by the great Zhou King also wished to activate the power of the suppression of the human realm. This possibility required the undefeatable realm civilized master to complete. Therefore, the great Zhou King might be an expert who supported the multi-divine language faction. F***ck. What the hell? Su Yu was stupefied. And as the successor of the polytheistic faction, it was best for him not to display too much talent and battle prowess at this time. Otherwise, he would be feared by others. As for the older generation, Wan Tianxing said that some people felt that their potential was limited and that their potential was at its peak. If they were exposed at this time, although there was danger, it wouldn't be as great as Su Yu's. So, I'm even more dangerous than Teacher Lu and the others. Manor Head Wan is trying to scare me, right? Su Yu looked at Wan Tianxing in a daze. Wan Tianxing smiled faintly and said, do you understand? I understand, but... Manor Head, you aren't trying to scare me. Wan Tianxing smiled and said, "Is there a need for that?" Wan Tianxing continued, "You haven't taken off yet. Actually, it doesn't matter much. Your powerful body is just a physical body, so I can't see anything for the time being. It's not a big deal for you to be powerful at this moment. The reason why I'm looking for you is to tell you some things so that you can understand the inside story. One reason is to remind you not to reveal too many differences on the path of divine inscriptions. Since you've already walked the path of dual cultivation of battle and literature, it's fine for you to show off your physical body. Don't make any more articles on divine inscriptions and be feared by others." Wan Tianxing said with a faint smile, "It's fine as long as you know what you're doing. You're a smart person, so you should use your wisdom on the right path. When you entered the academy, you should keep a low profile. Very good, cultivate and study obediently. Very good. Now, you insist on sticking your head out. If I don't see you again, are you preparing to stir up trouble in the academy?" "No." Su Yu denied it. "What kind of joke was this? I'm the one who should cultivate my character. The principal really thinks highly of me." This time, he completely understood. He muttered, "That's why my physical body can be a little stronger. When it comes to divine inscriptions, it's fine as long as it's average. Or, at the very least, that's the impression I give others. It's best if those who have truly experienced the strength of my divine inscriptions can't even open their mouths to speak. I understand now. Killing people to silence them." After Principal Wan talked for a long time, Suyu had finally figured out the main plot. First, if he knew that his divine inscriptions were very strong, or if he revealed that his divine inscriptions were very powerful, he would have to kill his enemies to silence them. Second, he had to keep a low profile when doing things. It was best to do this in private and not show his face all the time. Third, he had to be a sinister villain and not be a righteous fool. Fourth, he actually didn't have to worry about Lu Wenyan and the others. It was better to protect his own life. Fifth, the existence of the single divine runes might really be to protect the multiple divine runes, although the single divine runes didn't think so. Understood. Suyu didn't refute this time. He said, "Principal, I understand what you mean. When I make a move in the future, it will be the same as now. The body will be the main force, and the divine prose will be the supporting force. Moreover, Principal can't be too biased towards me, lest everyone knows that my divine prose talent is too strong and that I might become an unrivaled level civilized master, then they will want to kill me, right?" Wan Tianxing smiled, "Right? Maybe. Is there any hope?" "Not necessarily." He was just casually saying it. However, he did not wish for the current Suyu to be too ostentatious and show off too much. This was a disaster. It would easily bring him death. "Actually, I was also thinking that if your performance is outstanding, you might be able to lure out some people. However, I am worried that it will really destroy my last hope." Wan Tianxing muttered. He said softly, "Your teacher and grand teacher, they are enough. You should focus on cultivating. There are some things that you can forget when you go back. You don't have to think about it anymore. I'm reminding you. I just hope that you can walk more smoothly." It was very complicated. He actually had some complicated emotions as well. He felt that Suyu really had talent and ability. Perhaps he could be like Lu Wenyan and lure out some of the people behind the scenes. But Suyu was too young. He still had great potential. As for Lu Wenyan, Hong Tan, and the others, they were already quite old. It wouldn't be a problem for them to act as bait. He felt that the chances of these two fellows becoming invincible in the divine literature realm weren't high anymore. Suyu scratched his head and thought for a moment before saying, "Principal, I understand what you mean. Since you think so highly of me, why don't you give me some benefits? If I have money, my cultivation will be faster." Wan Tianxing couldn't help but laugh. "Benefits? These words today are worth 10,000 gold. Isn't that enough? He was very direct. He insisted on benefits. Suyu said embarrassedly, "It is very important. It allowed me to sort out some things, but, principal, it won't be of much help to me now. I don't have the resources, so I can't advance. It's useless. Rely on yourself." Wan Tianxing said lazily, "Don't you know about the Heavenly Yi Divine Sect? If you want benefits, go get them yourself. Bai Feng and Qin Yong will extract the blood essence and memories. Don't you know how to do that?" At this moment, only AF*CK could express Su Yu's state of mind. "You know everything. Is there anything you don't know? Is there anything you can't do? I only thought of it just now. You really know." Not only that, many things today were definitely top secret. Wan Tianxing knew about it. Su Yu didn't know if he was guessing or if there was really news, but he clearly knew more than many people. Su Yu was confused. This person, why did it feel like he was more well-informed than the mansion master of the great Xia mansion? Even though he did not manage to get any benefits, Su Yu could not do anything about it. At the very least, he knew some information that could not be bought with money. Without saying anything more, Su Yu could only bid farewell and leave. The moment he left, a white light landed behind him and instantly disappeared. After Su Yu left, Wan Tianxing closed his eyes and fell into deep thought. There were some things that he shouldn't have said to Su Yu. Was it useful for him to know a lot about his character? But in the end, he still held on to a sliver of hope. He was still young, so he should live a little longer. It wasn't for anything else. It was for the future when Ling Yun battled mountains and seas and fought across ranks. It was a scene that vaguely appeared in the corner of the screen. 100 years of lifespan was definitely an important picture. Even if it was just a flash, it would definitely not be a nameless and useless picture. Su Yu. At this moment, he thought back to that day when he first inspected the fluctuations of his blood essence. He had sensed a trace of abnormality on Su Yu's body. Back then, he had thought that Lu Wenyan had passed down the divine text to him. Now that it was proven that it was not, it meant that Su Yu had another opportunity. Gently rocking his chair, Wan Tianxing suddenly smiled and said, "Pressure is the driving force. This pressure, is it big enough? Was it enough?" He felt that it was enough. Don't keep fighting with the single divine runes department. If you really defeated them, your good days will be completely over. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 835. Chapter 835, Chapter 208, Stupid Children 1. You didn't give me any benefits. You're just fooling me. Su Yu, who was walking down from the Heart Cultivation Pavilion, was a little speechless. No wonder people said that Wan Tianxing and Lord Xiaohou were in cahoots. They only came in and didn't come out. A dignified principal actually didn't even give a single drool when he summoned a student. Too stingy. Thinking about it, Su Yu didn't dare to blow his top. Boss Wan was too strong and he couldn't afford to provoke him. At the academy, he was still waiting for Boss Wan to suppress his opponent at any time. He was thinking about other things. Many things. Chen Yong, Hong Tan, Bai Feng, Lu Hong, Xia Huyo, including the current Wan Tianxing, many people had told him about what had happened in the past. They talked about the death of 5 generations, the Zhou family's hostility, and the invincible rebellion. Today, Su Yu had a lot of knowledge about what had happened in the past. At least, he knew the general direction. He just didn't know who was the enemy and who was the friend. Let me cultivate properly. Su Yu sighed. That's right. It was time to cultivate properly. Especially after this time, after entering the Sea of Consciousness secret realm and absorbing enough willpower, he should sketch the divine text and prepare to enter the 10,000 stone realm. The current him wasn't weak. He had used all his trump cards. Normally, even the weaker soaring in the air could suffer from his Tao. But soaring. Just like what Bai Feng had said, soaring was the starting point. True cultivators all started from soaring. This was the foundation of a strong cultivator. My foundation is still too weak. It's time for me to study. Su Yu thought to himself. Class, reading, learning the myriad clan language. Now, his atlas had opened many pages. However, he didn't know many of the race's languages, causing Su Yu to not know the effects of the cultivation method or the effects of the innate skill. He didn't dare to try it out rashly. If this was a self-destructing type of innate skill, wouldn't he be courting death if he tried it out directly? There were some races' languages that Su Yu knew, which was why he could learn the other party's cultivation method. Otherwise, he wouldn't even be able to understand it. Be a good student. Su Yu nodded. Yes, he was still a freshman. It was time for him to be a good student. The next time he met Zhou Pingsheng and the others, he had to respect them. As for killing Zhou Pingsheng, perhaps he didn't even need to do it himself. That fellow had to first withstand the suppression from the internal department of the Divine Literature Department. After causing so much trouble, would Elder Sun and the others be polite to him? Su Yu still remembered many of Wan Tianxing's words. Wan Tianxing might not be telling the truth, but Su Yu felt that it was impossible for everything to be fake. There was no need to use a whole set of lies to deceive a student like him. As for the scene he saw, the massacre in the academy, Su Yu frowned slightly. Was it possible? Perhaps it really was possible. That day in the battle zone, Lu Wenyan and the others were surrounded and attacked, but no one helped. Su Yu threw out his cultivation method and martial technique, but no one was willing to help. At that moment, Su Yu felt that the Great Xia Manor was completely not as bright as he had imagined. This was the dark Great Xia Manor, the selfish Great Xia Manor. Grandmaster also advised him not to bear too much hatred. But how could Su Yu listen to him? He had gained so much enlightenment. He had participated in the Divine Prose competition and directly crippled many students of the single Divine Prose faculty because of hatred. If it was before, when he dealt with Lu He and the other students of the single Divine Prose faculty, other than being a bit ruthless toward Huang Qifeng, he wasn't ruthless toward anyone else. This included Chen Qi, Lin Yao, Yang Sha, and many others who were targeting him. Even when it came to Zhou Hao, he could still shout for them to work together. Only when it came to the single divine text department, Su Yu did have a deep grudge against them. As for those who weren't from the multiple divine texts department, Su Yu didn't really like them at the moment. He was very disappointed with the civilized academy. That day, when his father returned to the demon suppression army, he said that they were comrades in arms and comrades in arms. Although Su Yu didn't say it out loud, he was still envious in his heart. His blood had also boiled. When his father returned, he didn't complain much. It was because of this friendship. But now, in the Civilization Academy, Su Yu didn't feel any of this. If he became powerful in such a Civilization Academy, perhaps that scene would really appear on the screen. He thought about it along the way. He restrained his resentment a little. As for completely giving up on going against the single divine text department, he was thinking too much. It was just that old Wan was right. There was no need to be so ostentatious. He had to let the entire institute see that he had made a move against the students of their department. Previously, the more divine text department was weak, so they could still gain sympathy if they fought back. Now that Su Yu was suppressing the younger generation, no matter how much he pestered them, the other students would think that Su Yu was being unreasonable. This was what outsiders thought. Reputation, character, is still very important. Su Yu reflected on himself. It was still very necessary to be cautious when he entered the school. After the battle in the war zone ended, he no longer kept a low profile. This was related to the recent changes in his state of mind. Previously, when he did things, he was always reasonable. Coming from a small place, he had always been cautious when he first entered the great Xia residence. These few days, he had indeed been a little impulsive. It's necessary to deal with the single divine pros faction, but there's no need to be too obvious. Now, even a few pavilion elders have their eyes on me. This isn't a good thing. Su Yu reflected on himself for a while. Keep a low profile. It was meaningless to heavily injure those students every time. If he really wanted to do it, he would find an opportunity to make a trip out of the academy and lure out a few enemies to kill them in the wilderness. For example, those bastards like Huang Qifeng, it was useless to be heavily injured once or twice. They had money, so they could recover. They could either kill them directly, or they could bear with it and find an opportunity to kill them all at once, eliminating the root of the problem. Father once said that on the battlefield, one must learn to bear with it. Sometimes, it's normal to set up an ambush on the ground and dig a hole to bury oneself for 7 or 8 days. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 836. Chapter 836, Chapter 208, Foolish Children 2. If I don't make a move, I have to kill my opponent. Pretending to be a grandson in front of a big shot, but being ruthless in front of a small shot. Thinking back to all these years, Su Yu summarized his gains and losses. He felt that there was no need to go against the rules of the 10,000 heavenly saints. Otherwise, he would be the one at a disadvantage. There was no need to be so stubborn. October 21st. The competition for spots had already ended. The Sea of Consciousness realm would open on the 25th. In the past few days, the single divine text department had also been confirming the final list and preparing to open the realm. And Su Yu began to attend classes on this day. He had to work hard to be a good student. It was still very necessary to attend classes. There were fewer people in the class. Today, many people didn't come to class. Su Yu couldn't be bothered with them either. Each had their own path. Many people did not see them, but there were a few evildoers who came. After the old teacher finished his class, Su Yu packed his textbooks and was about to leave when there was an additional person in front of him. Hu Qiusheng had a smile on his face as he looked at Su Yu and said gently, "Let's have a chat." Su Yu also smiled and smiled brightly. He nodded and said, "All right, let's talk while we walk." The two of them went out together. The other students in the class glanced at them but did not bother with them. The students in the class felt ashamed of their inferiority in front of these two. They, who considered themselves geniuses, were far inferior to these two fellows. Below the teaching building, the students came and went in a hurry. When they saw the two of them, many of them automatically avoided them. Some of the intermediate and lower class students even greeted them when they saw the two of them. Su Yu and Hu Qiusheng both smiled in response. Both of their temperaments were slightly refined, their smiles were easygoing. As they walked, Hu Qiusheng said, "Previously, you said that you wanted to open a research institute. To be honest, opening a research institute is also my hope. Or rather, students who are really interested in this aspect all have this idea." Hu Qiusheng said, then, he said with some hesitation, "But you said that researching cultivation techniques, divine runes, these things are all clichés. The research institute of the institute is most likely researching these things. Then, what are the characteristics of your research institute? Divine runes cultivation techniques, these things were really common. Everyone was researching them. In the end, not many people managed to come up with anything interesting." Su Yu looked at him and said with a smile, "Brother Hu, do you want to join the research institute?" Hu Qiusheng chuckled and said, "It depends on the situation. Is there anything that interests me? I actually applied for a research institute previously. Now that it's open to me, I'm still very interested. However, there are more experts there. Suyu was curious and asked, which one? The Divine Runes Arrangement Research Institute. When Suyu heard this, he remembered that he had heard of this one before. He said in surprise, this one. That's not bad. It's a research institute that studies the arrangement of divine runes, right? For example, some single divine runes combination to form a complete system. It's this one, right? Yes. Hu Qiusheng nodded. Back then, your department came up with the theory of the fusion of divine runes. After that, you gave up on this aspect of research. The Divine Runes Arrangement Research Institute has been catching up over the years. In fact, the results are quite good. Now, many students from the single Divine Runes department have walked into the Divine Runes Combination department. Actually, this is also considered a system between the single and multiple Divine Runes department. Of course, it's also classified as a single Divine Runes department. Suyu nodded. He really knew about this. For example, Zheng Yiming's grandson walked in this line. Including Wan Mingze, several sealing-type divine runes could also be considered a combination. There were some internal differences between the single divine runes. Some people were still walking in the true path of divine runes. Just one divine rune. Experts who focused on a single divine rune were actually not weak either. This was because the other party had enough time and energy to nurture this divine rune. He did not say anything more about this. Suyu explained, the research institute that I want to set up is also somewhat related to this aspect. I also want to involve some of the divine text's characteristic combinations and test their compatibility. Of course, because we are not soaring in the sky, the divine text cannot be manifested. Currently, it should not be in the mainstream. The mainstream is still in the cultivation method aspect. Cultivation method. Hu Qiusheng frowned slightly and said, it's too broad. Do you have a smaller plan? Yes. Suyu nodded and said, before this, didn't our Wentan Research Center derive the soul-devouring art? And although the soul-devouring art is only a yellow-rank cultivation method, it has a very special characteristic. It can burn and corrode willpower, causing Yuan Qi to mutate. This includes the last time I entered the mystic realm with my willpower during the divine literature competition, but it still had this effect. I was thinking about one thing, the commonality of Yuan Qi and willpower. Commonality? Hu Qiusheng was taken aback. You mean, the conversion of Yuan Qi and willpower? Suyu nodded. In fact, this aspect has been researched for a long time, but no feasible plan has been proposed before. Instead, the appearance of the soul-devouring art has given me an inspiration. Perhaps I can discover some characteristics through the soul-devouring bugs. Suyu smiled and said, of course, it's only a plan at the moment. There's no progress at all. I can't do all this by myself. Furthermore, my teacher is about to leave the academy, and Grandmaster is also going into seclusion to cultivate. Suyu sighed and said, I can only open a research institute and find some like-minded friends to do it together. If I can successfully research something that interacts willpower and vitality, it can blur the boundary between a warrior and a civilized master. The gap between civilized masters and warriors is very heavy now. Suyu said seriously, of course, this is a major research. I feel that many warriors, including civilized masters, might be doing it, but we have one advantage, and that is to derive the soul-devouring art. With this foundation, we can do it. In addition, there are actually some races that can interconnect the two. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 837. Chapter 837, Chapter 208, Stupid Children 3. Hu Qiusheng raised his eyebrows but didn't say anything. Suyu had a good temperament, yet he wanted to do such a big project. He had to admit that he was a little whimsical. If he said it in a small way, it was just researching a cultivation technique. If he said it in a big way, it was to break the barrier between the warrior and the civilized master. Suyu, are you sure you want to study this direction? Suyu nodded, I'm sure. Not only am I sure, but I also have some ideas. You know me, I have a lot of openings. When I have a lot of openings, I realized something. When I have opened hundreds of my elemental apertures, if I have opened more divine apertures, I suspect that there will be a line between the two, connecting them together. Suyu said seriously, or rather, it's not a line, but an aperture. If there is an aperture, it might be able to connect the divine aperture and the essence aperture. If I assume that this aperture exists, it means that once this aperture is opened, a civilized master is also a warrior, and a warrior is also a civilized master. Hu Qiusheng's heart trembled slightly. Is that true? It's just a conjecture. Suyu smiled and said, to conduct these studies, I have to first make a hypothesis and work hard in this area. Only after I truly enter the research will I know if it's true or not. Hu Qiusheng took a deep breath. Was this proposed by Teacher Hong or Teacher Bai? Suyu rolled his eyes. I guessed it myself. When I opened up to 300 apertures, I realized that there might be this aperture. 300 apertures. Hu Qiusheng didn't want to speak. From more than 300 years ago, after the rise of the strong, to now, there were more apertures than Suyu. Was there one? He was not sure. There might be, but he had never heard of it. Suyu, if there was such an opening, would our ancestors not have discovered it? Suyu said in a speechless manner, then how would I know? Perhaps it was kept a secret, or perhaps no one had discovered it. Perhaps the conditions that needed to be fulfilled were too harsh. For example, opening more than 300 yuan apertures, opening more than 100 divine apertures, or even more. If the yuan apertures are easy to open, could it be that the divine apertures are also easy to open? Then, even if the research is done, there is no point in promoting it. Suyu was speechless. Brother Hu, are you an idiot? If we really found the location of that aperture, perhaps we can try to open this aperture directly. Suyu said in a deep voice, from a few hundred years ago, when we humans cultivate, we first open 9 apertures before we can officially cultivate. However, other races are not like this. They can usually cultivate directly. According to the general saying, humans are not suitable for cultivation. What nonsense is this? Humans are not suitable for cultivation. How can they be invincible and enter the top 10 races? Therefore, I feel that perhaps we have not explored enough of the human body. Tell me, if one day we discover this aperture that I have guessed, we can directly open the aperture and no longer have to open the yuan passively, what would be the impact on the entire human race? Hu Qiusheng trembled slightly. After a long while, his throat was hoarse as he said, the number of human cultivators has skyrocketed. By eliminating the time for passively opening the yuan, we can directly enter the cultivation realm. We won't let people miss the golden time for cultivation. Starting from the elementary school to the intermediate school, we can all cultivate. At that time, when we enter the advanced school at the age of 18, we might have already reached the peak. Suyu smiled and said, that's right. Hu Qiusheng took a deep breath and said, I've never considered your guess before. How about this, I'll go back and check if there's any research on this aspect in the various universities, including the seeking stage. You've reminded me that the human experts would definitely think of skipping the yuan opening stage. I suspect that someone is doing research on this aspect. Perhaps we can refer to it. That's us. Suyu couldn't help but laugh. This fellow has decided to join my research institute. Hu Qiusheng was backed by the Hu family. The Hu family was a large family. Manager who was also a sun and moon expert. Moreover, he wasn't the type who had just entered. As Hu Qiusheng spoke, he looked at Suyu with a strange expression. Suyu, are you sure that you haven't seen the research proposal on this topic and came up with your own conjecture? This conjecture was very shocking. Even if there was no evidence to prove that the acupoint Suyu mentioned existed, this conjecture was a huge research direction in itself and had great research value. Suyu smiled and said, "This is an idea that comes naturally to people who have opened many apertures. You haven't opened many apertures, so naturally, you wouldn't understand." How heart-wrenching. Hu Qiusheng felt the urge to vomit blood from being pricked. As for Suyu, he said with an even more heart-wrenching tone, "Your talent in cultivation isn't bad, but the person I'm looking for isn't this kind of person. Brother Hu, don't blame me for saying it harshly. If your talent in cultivation is good, you'll be a fighter, a divine scribe, and not necessarily a civilized master. If you think about it, I might not accept you yet." Hu Qiusheng didn't mind either. He quickly said, "Up until now, I've grasped 77 racial languages. Since I was young, I've read 1082 cultivation techniques. Of course, it's not the language of will, it's just a translation. I once improved a cultivation technique. It was a high-level yellow-class cultivation technique. Originally, I had 27 openings, but I didn't increase the number of openings. Instead, I reduced one opening and opened 26 openings. In the end, the explosive power was the same." Suyu was a little surprised. Improved cultivation technique? Reduced openings. Shrinking didn't mean that it was weaker. It was just that some cultivation techniques were very bad. Although there were 27 openings, the true explosive power might only be the strength of 26 openings. One of them was a waste of openings. Reducing one, it could save one's cultivation time, and the effect would be the same. To be able to master 77 languages and know 1082 cultivation techniques, as expected of someone from a huge clan. This fellow was only 18 years old. Even if he started learning from the age of 6, after 12 years, he would be able to master more than 5 language lessons a year, and he would be able to observe more than 90 cultivation techniques. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 838. Chapter 838, Chapter 208, Stupid Children 4. Amazing. Suyu's eyes lit up. Then you have the right to enter my research institute, even though there's no sign of it yet. Hu Qiusheng sighed. What a pity. I think you should focus on your research. As for the conflict between the schools, why bother so much? If it doesn't work, when we have some results, I'll ask my grandfather to recommend you to pursue further studies in the exploration realm. We'll see. In the past 2 days, there had been quite a number of people who had tried to persuade him. Suyu was a little surprised. Could it be that he had really changed a lot? Even Hu Qiusheng had the idea of asking him to avoid these conflicts. He had never mentioned it before. Moreover, the two of them were not too familiar with each other. Was it Hu Qiusheng's idea, or was it that manager Hu's idea? It was hard to be sure. Would manager Hu pay attention to a small figure like him? After bidding farewell to Hu Qiusheng, Suyu was also planning his next plans. Cultivation was the first priority, and the establishment of the research institute was also a matter. In addition, it was to create trouble for the single divine text department, and also to find an opportunity to go out and search for treasures of the heavenly divine sect. That was a large sect. The sect master was a sun-moon realm expert. However, he had been killed, and now his corpse was still in the pit of 10,000 races. He didn't know how to get it. If it did not work out, it would be better to bring Xiaohu along. Just as Suyu was busy with his self-reflection. 18 High School, Back Mountain. At this moment, the Back Mountain was already a forbidden area. The teachers and students of 18 High School would not come here either. They all knew that a few experts had recently arrived here. Bai Feng helped Lu Wenyan comb through the divine runes again and exhaled. Martial uncle, you've already exploded so many divine runes, how can you still have so many? You've been too free these past few years, sketching out divine runes every day. Lu Wenyan couldn't be bothered with him. He sensed the divine runes that were no longer so chaotic and said, "Your Grandmaster only left 8 divine runes." 8 divine runes, they were all human divine runes. They had all entered the Sun-Moon realm. In other words, at this moment, he had grasped 8 Sun-Moon divine runes. Bai Feng nodded, "Martial uncle, this is actually an opportunity. You can fuse your own divine runes into it and reassemble your divine runes battle technique. It's good that you dropped a few divine runes before, but you've almost wiped out the Grandmaster's imprint. Otherwise, the repulsive force will be very strong, and it'll be very difficult for your divine runes to fuse into it. Reassemble." Lu Wenyan nodded. "My previous battle technique was sword-shaped while your Grandmaster's was axe-shaped. Because your Grandmaster's divine runes battle technique surpassed mine, I could only use the axe. The axe is too ugly." Bai Feng was speechless. He still said that he didn't respect his teacher, but what about you? How dare you say that a 5th-generation axe is ugly? This was an axe that had killed an invincible expert before. Then what kind of axe does Uncle Master want to reassemble? Of course, why should I tell you? Lu Wenyan was too lazy to talk to him. What was the point of telling him? He didn't continue, he quickly said, "I've felt it for a while, but I still can't use all of it. Because my divine runes are only at tier 2, and I don't even have tier 3 divine runes, the deviation is very large. At most, I can only unleash the power of about the 9th layer of the soaring heavens realm. Uncle Master's willpower and divine aperture have actually caught up. The only difference is the level of the divine runes. With a strong willpower to nurture it, I'll soon enter level 3. Level 3, that would be Ling Yun. Bai Feng calculated that it would be around a year at most. After entering level 4, Lu Wenyan would be able to enter the mountains and seas without any obstacles. It would also be very fast. Within 3 years, he would definitely be able to enter the mountains and seas. Furthermore, it was only him. It wasn't that he couldn't use his 8 human sun and moon divine runes. If he used them at the critical moment, he would be able to display his sun and moon battle prowess once again. It was just that the duration wasn't long, and his martial uncle's sea of consciousness was still a little weak. In addition, his physical body was also a little weak. Lu Wenyan nodded. "I'm not in a hurry. I should still have the confidence to enter the mountains and seas within 3 years. As for you, you should recover your strength as soon as possible. Otherwise, it won't be easy for you in the vanguard camp." Bai Feng didn't mind. What was there to be anxious about? He didn't dwell on this and changed the topic. "Uncle Master, we're all leaving. My master is also going into seclusion. What about Suyu?" Lu Wenyan smiled. "It's fine. I've already asked some old friends to take care of him. There won't be much of a problem. You should recover as soon as possible. Otherwise, you'll really be caught up. Your master said before that he even defeated many students at the peak of recuperation. I think that there will be hope for him soon." Bai Feng was depressed. "I'm not even going back to the academy, yet this brat still dares to provoke me from afar. Looks like I really have to work hard to raise my realm." The two of them chatted for a while more. Lu Wenyan suddenly said, "It's best for you to make a trip to the Starry Manor. I've never been to the Starry Manor, but your master has. When he came back, he told me that I guessed that this manor was left behind by an unrivaled civilized master. It's very likely that it's still human, and in fact, it may be beyond invincible. Of course, I've never been there, so it's hard to judge." Lu Wenyan said seriously, "Don't delay your cultivation. Although your theory of dividing and filling is reasonable, it may not be perfect. At least for now, it doesn't seem to be a big problem for me to enter the sun and moon, but to be invincible, to be honest, I don't think I have a good chance." Bai Feng nodded. That was true. After all, the human race's divine texts hadn't found any eternal divine texts yet, so he still lacked some references. It would be best if he could get an eternal human divine text to study and analyze. Only then would he have enough confidence. Otherwise, it would be a gamble. Bai Feng turned his head to look at the Great Xia's Institute of Civilization. It was a pity that he might not have been there when that kid entered the sky. He really wanted to cut him open to take a look. Eternal divine prose. He looked over there. There was something he had never said to anyone. Su Yu had inherited a true eternal divine prose. The kind of human. He had such a guess. His stupid disciple had been using the blood divine prose to fool him. What nonsense. He had seen the sun and moon divine prose. Lu Wenyan had it. It wasn't that perverse. Could it be that Su Yu had grasped the eternal divine text? The chances were that it belonged to the human race. Otherwise, why would he reject the divine texts of other races, only being able to outline the divine texts of the human race? This foolish fellow has exposed too much to me. I hope you'll be more careful. Bai Feng muttered in his heart. Foolish child. I'm just too lazy to expose you. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 839. Chapter 839, Chapter 209 I Am Invincible 1. Wen Tan Research Center. Back, no one. Hong Tan did not know whether he went into seclusion or went out to do some work. In the huge research center, only Su Yu was left. Su Yu calmed his heart and went to the second floor. While reading, he tempered his willpower. He had not read for some time. During the 5 years in the middle school, he almost went to the library every day to read and study. Now that he had arrived at the advanced academy, there was no end to the trivial matters. The tree desired silence, but the wind did not stop. The source of everything was that the multiple divine languages had touched upon the interests of many people. There were the interests of the experts of the 10,000 races, as well as the interests of some people of the human race. Su Yu did not think about it anymore. He read, studied, and strengthened himself. He strengthened his friends. Single-handedly, even if he was invincible, he could not suppress all of them. Unite a group of people. Su Yu thought of himself as a genius, and with the help of the Atlas, no matter how talented he was, he could not become invincible in a day. The Great Xia King and the others were strong enough, right? They were still under some restrictions, and they still needed to win over some allies in order to let the Great Xia Mansion take the initiative in the upcoming battle. The biggest thing I can give you is the cultivation technique. Su Yu was reading the book. He was doing 3 things at once while thinking about other things. The most important thing he could give him was the cultivation method. However, those geniuses did not lack ordinary cultivation methods. For a person like Hu Qiusheng, who could study more than 1,000 cultivation methods over the years, would the Hu family lack cultivation methods? What they lacked were powerful and important cultivation methods. For example, the water origin technique and the soul-devouring technique. Once I can master 5 of the 5 elemental cultivation techniques, I'll be able to open 180 divine apertures. That would be very powerful. Even if I can't teach all of them, I'll be able to open 108 divine apertures with the combination of 3 of them. That would still be much stronger than the 10,000 literature classic that I've inherited. Furthermore, it's a cultivation technique that can be cultivated by cultivating one's nature. Su Yu thought to himself. If he could master all 3 of the cultivation techniques, he would be able to form a top-grade earth-grade cultivation technique with 108 divine apertures. Furthermore, it was the type that could be cultivated by cultivating one's nature. It would definitely affect the entire field of civilized masters. This meant that when it came to Soaring Sky and Ling Yun, there was no need to switch cultivation techniques. This meant that for many people, soaring sky, and Ling Yun could reduce most of the time needed to advance. 3 cultivation techniques. Who can I trust to teach 3 cultivation techniques? Su Yu fell into deep thought. Furthermore, he had yet to complete the fusion of 5 cultivation techniques. Currently, even if he had 44 God apertures, the second set of cultivation techniques and the first set were still not fused. He needed an expert to help him sort them out. In the next moment, Su Yu thought of a few people. Lu Wenyan and Bai Feng were actually very suitable, but Bai Feng's cultivation realm was low, so he might not be able to understand these things. Lu Wenyan, it was best not to interact too much with him right now. Then there was still one person who was very suitable. Zhao Li. A teacher who passed on his soul-expanding art to Su Yu. He didn't have any motive. He simply felt that Su Yu was suitable to cultivate the soul-expanding art, so he passed it on to Su Yu. Perhaps I should go find teacher Zhao and ask him to help me understand how to integrate the 5 arts together. His 4th-generation son had lived for 120 years and created the spirit-expanding art himself. He was a member of the weapon-forging faculty and an expert who had failed to advance to Shanghai City. Zhao Li was very suitable. As for Hong Tan and Chen Yong, to put it bluntly, he wasn't too familiar with them. They had too little contact with each other. The multiple divine runes department gave Su Yu a very good feeling. Grandmaster and Uncle Master were also good people and treated him very well. However, Su Yu did not wish for him to use these things to test people's hearts. On Zhao Li's side, if he really wanted this text formula, Su Yu would treat it as the tuition fee for the divine expansion formula. He looked at the time. The sky was not dark yet. It would not be too late to go when it was dark. He continued to read the book, reading the text of will. Back then, he had gotten Xia Huyo to collect quite a bit of the text of will for him. If he didn't read it now, his willpower would slowly dissipate, and that would be a huge loss. As he read, Su Yu fell into deep thought. This was an unknown number of saber techniques that he had read. He had discovered that for the same type of cultivation technique, the degree of overlap of the enlightenment was very high. For example, they were all saber techniques. There were at least 20 overlaps between 40 enlightenment and 30 enlightenment. This meant that when one learned a high-level cultivation technique, the difficulty of comprehending a low-level cultivation technique would be greatly reduced. Sometimes, one might be able to learn another cultivation technique just by opening a few openings. The homogeneity of cultivation techniques is very serious. Many cultivation techniques actually have overlapping effects. Soul-devouring art opens 36 openings, allowing one's yuan qi to mutate. Does that mean that there are other openings that have special abilities that have yet to be excavated? Su Yu pondered while reading. It had been a long time since he last thought like this. Willpower was growing naturally. Civilized masters, a group of people who inherited the civilization. It was rumored that there were civilized masters who did not even need to read the text of willpower. They could even sketch out the divine text from ordinary books. Just like Su Yu, they were able to sketch out the complete divine text. This was the case for ancient civilized masters. Of course, this was a legend. 80% of his willpower had been fully accumulated, and it was gradually increasing. Su Yu didn't feel anything and continued to observe. Night fell. A divine text was successfully drawn out. Su Yu fell into deep thought. How strange. This time, the drawing of the divine text was very smooth. It wasn't like the previous times, where the divine text was drawn out by force. This time, it seemed like this guy was fighting to get in. Was he attracted by his own talent? Was he trying to throw himself at him? Moreover, the divine runes drawn this time were also somewhat different. In the past, Su Yu's main drawing was a battle-type divine rune, but this time, it wasn't. Fire. Su Yu originally thought that it was a battle-type divine rune, but it was arson. He had seen a few of them, so it wasn't too bad. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 840. Chapter 840, Chapter 209, I Am Invincible Too. In the end, there was no such characteristic. Su Yu's state of mind collapsed. The word fire doesn't set fire. What's going on? Su Yu was confused. He had sensed the characteristic of this newly born divine text, but it was a very strange feeling. This was not an offensive divine text, but a supplementary one. In the next moment, Su Yu's willpower was ignited. Yes, he ignited his willpower. Burn. There was no burning sensation like the soul-devouring art, but a special feeling. It felt like he was purifying his willpower, but it wasn't entirely the same. Su Yu was silent for a moment, then took out an ordinary book and started reading. With this reading, he felt that his mind was clear, and his ability to accept things had greatly increased. He flipped through the book page by page, and in the blink of an eye, he finished reading a book. This is, The Meaning of the Flame of Wisdom. Su Yu was in a daze. After lighting the divine fire, his ability to accept things had increased greatly. He felt as if he was rapidly receiving all the information. What was this? Did he have to become a bookworm? Then, can I deepen my comprehension by comprehending willpower? Su Yu tried again and read a book on willpower. As expected, after reading it, he seemed to understand some things that he did not understand before. His mind became clearer. In an instant, countless thoughts flashed through his mind. He felt that it was exceptionally easy to think. However, Su Yu also noticed that when he looked at the text of will, the fire word burned even faster. It was a little draining of his willpower, and it was quite a big drain. Auxiliary type. This was the first time Su Yu had encountered a purely auxiliary type divine text. The other one was a blood underling. The function of the illusory realm was actually a little special. Logically speaking, the blood divine text did not have much to do with the illusory realm, but the result was there. It could be that the first divine text had some variation. Of course, there was also the Yin divine text, which could also be considered auxiliary. However, Su Yu directly ignored it. Su Yu felt that since this fellow was so sinister, then he would continue to be sinister, he would just pretend that he didn't know of its existence. 8 divine texts. At this moment, Su Yu had already outlined 8 divine texts. The fire divine text wasn't powerful, nor was it at the second rank, nor was it at the peak of the first rank. However, Su Yu was very interested in this divine text. On one hand, it was simple to outline, and on the other hand, it had a special effect. Su Yu memorized this matter in his heart. Looking at the time, it was time to look for teacher Zhao to ask about the situation. Zhao Li Research Institute. Upon seeing Su Yu, Zhao Li was a little surprised. He smiled and said, "That's right, your willpower is clear. You've thought through something. Previously, when you came to my place, I saw that although your willpower was strong, it was covered in a layer of haze. In just 2 days, you've actually adjusted it. Clear." Su Yu did not have this feeling, but he roughly knew that it might be the effect of the fire word divine text. There was also another reason that he had thought through. For example, one had to keep a low profile. One had to be a sly old man, not a righteous one. Su Yu laughed. His smile was pure. Zhao Li took a look and could not help but laugh. He suddenly felt that Su Yu's smile was much more sincere now. It's normal to encounter some setbacks and confusion on the path of cultivation. You just need to adjust yourself. Zhao Li didn't say much and said directly, "Do you need help with something?" Su Yu nodded and went straight to the point. "Teacher, are all the civilized masters nowadays cultivating the 10,000 Literature Sutra?" Zhao Li shook his head. The 10,000 Literature Sutra hasn't been around for many years. A few years ago, they didn't cultivate the 10,000 literature sutra. Of course, it can be considered as a weakened version, but now it's even stronger. It can open 72 God apertures, but before that, it could only open 54 God apertures. Only 54 God apertures, which was something Su Yu didn't expect. Zhao Li glanced at Su Yu and asked, "What, do you want to switch cultivation techniques in the future?" He knew that Su Yu had opened God apertures. He knew it last time. Now that Su Yu came to ask him, he could roughly guess his purpose. He smiled and said, "There's no rush. It's a good thing for you to open a few more divine apertures. For example, if you open 18 divine apertures and you enter the air, you can let the 18 divine apertures absorb willpower and quickly open the first one of the Wan scripture. This is the advantage of the basic text formula." "Teacher, I know this." Su Yu nodded. He had long known about this, and it was Zhang Hao who had said it. Su Yu thought for a moment and said, "Teacher, the Wan scripture is only an open cultivation technique. Then is there any secret technique that can open more divine apertures?" "I'm not sure about that." Zhao Li thought for a moment and said, "There should be. The Great Zhou Manor and the Great Ming Manor are actually considered civilized and inherited aristocratic families. Of course, at that stage, it's actually not very clear. However, these invincible ones might have even stronger cultivation technique inheritances. Then, are there any cultivation techniques that have more than 144 divine apertures?" Zhao Li was speechless. "Are you here to pick a fight? How would I know? Moreover, 144 divine apertures. Do you think that cultivation techniques are like cabbages? What do you want to say? Hurry up and say it." Zhao Li was impatient. This little brat had so much nonsense to do, and he was even trying to keep him in suspense. Su Yu smiled and said, "I'm thinking, teacher, your willpower has been greatly suppressed. In fact, your tenacity is already as strong as mountains and seas. You only have 72 divine apertures open. Is that enough to support your sea of will consumption?" Zhao Li said unhappily, and then, "I'm thinking, if teacher opens another dozens of divine apertures, will it be very powerful?" Zhao Li smiled and said, "You want to teach me your basic formula?" Zhao Li thought for a moment, he shook his head and said, "There's no need. It's very difficult for me to open my divine apertures now. Moreover, it's not a system of divine apertures. Even if I open them, the help will not be as great as I imagine. Once there are many overlapping divine apertures, for example, if you master a cultivation technique that opens 18 divine apertures, there might be 15 overlapping divine apertures. Opening another 3 divine apertures will be of limited help to me." You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 841. Chapter 841, Chapter 209 I Am Invincible, please subscribe to the monthly 3. He had already opened 72 God apertures, so it wasn't of much help. The basic text manuals were mostly helpful to non-Sky Realm students. When they were in the air, they might be able to open a few more God apertures, but if the overlap was high, they wouldn't open many God apertures, and they wouldn't form a large system. The help would be average, but it would make their willpower stronger. This was completely useless to Zhao Li. His willpower was comparable to the mountains and seas. His only flaw was that there was a problem with the main God text. "Teacher." Su Yu didn't say anything. He looked around and said, "Teacher, will we be monitored?" Zhao Li blew his beard and glared. "Nonsense. I'm an existence whose willpower is comparable to the mountains and seas realm. Monitoring me? You must be joking. Cough, cough, this matter is more important. I'm worried that there's a very strong person in the Heart Cultivation Pavilion." Su Yu reminded him. He was now suspecting that the person who frequently investigated the academy actually knew that he had drawn a lot of basic divine texts for his divine literature battle techniques. This was something that the two of them had never seen before. He knew that he had a lot of divine texts for his will, so how did he know this? Back then, he hadn't thought about this at all. He had thought about it. He might not be able to sense things that had nothing to do with him. When Zhao Li heard this, his expression changed. He glanced at Su Yu and couldn't help but say, "You dare to doubt it." That fellow was indeed very strong. Very quickly, Zhao Li's divine runes rippled, and an invisible layer of fluctuation appeared in the entire hall. Zhao Li smiled and said, "Are you relieved now? This is the anti-prying divine array embedded in the entire forge. It is to prevent the divine array from being probed by others. No one can break it unless they forcefully tear it apart." Su Yu nodded. He was relieved now. As for Su Yu, he did not waste any words. He took out a large piece of white paper from the things he brought and spread it on the table. He picked up a brush and began to write and draw. Zhao Li went over to take a look. He frowned slightly. Su Yu was drawing the origin aperture diagram. Gradually, he realized something was wrong. It was not the origin aperture diagram. Was this Su Yu copying the Sea of Will? Stars. One red dot after another was marked by Su Yu. 1, 2. 36. A system. Su Yu used his pen to connect the 36 red dots. Finally, in a complicated form, he connected all 36 red dots into that small circle. The most crucial part of a system was actually this. There were countless ways to combine the 36 divine apertures, but it did not mean that you could form a cultivation method by randomly combining them. Different ways to combine the first and second apertures would lead to different results in the end. For a complete cultivation method, the location of the apertures was the most important point, but how to connect them was more important. This was the core. For example, Su Yu had opened 300 primordial orifices, but he was unable to form a complete system because he lacked this kind of connecting method. Zhao Li frowned. This was a text formula. Su Yu had written his basic text formula for him. It was very strong. Opening 36 divine orifices, and they were all divine orifices that could be opened by cultivating one's nature. This was also the first time he had observed this kind of basic text formula. Although it wasn't a text of will, it wasn't that intuitive, and it wasn't even a text. It was just a picture, and it allowed Zhao Li to gain some gains. After comparing it, Zhao Li was a little surprised. There weren't many divine apertures that overlapped with the Wanwen scripture. This meant that if he learned it, he could open dozens more divine apertures. One or two wouldn't be of much use, but if he opened dozens more, his willpower would be even stronger. As for Su Yu, after connecting the 36 red dots together, he paused and began to mark the red dots again. Zhao Li frowned. What did he mean? Blind spots? One red dot after another appeared. Very quickly, another 36 red dots appeared. Su Yu continued to link the 36 red dots together. When Zhao Li saw that he wanted to continue, he couldn't help but say, "Don't be blind. Is this the Sea of Will? Don't mark the God's aperture blindly. If you open the wrong position, your Sea of Will be pierced through." The divine aperture was called the divine aperture because this divine aperture could be opened and sealed. It could be opened in the first place. If it was not opened at the divine aperture, if it was opened at another place, it would be the opening of a ladle. If the Sea of Will was opened up, the person would also be finished. Su Yu smiled and said, "Teacher, don't be anxious. Calm down. I only marked 2 sets. There are still 3 sets left." Zhao Li frowned and said, "Is it really a God's aperture?" "Yes, teacher will know once you continue reading." Zhao Li frowned and said, "The 2 sets are somewhat similar. If you really didn't point it out blindly, then it means that these are two different types of writings. They are completely different, and none of the god's apertures actually overlap. However, the final combination of these two writings is similar. This is a writing technique that originated from one person, but it was split apart. He muttered, these two sets might be a cultivation technique, but it was split apart. Is that what you mean? You want me to help you combine them and restore them to a set? Suyu laughed. As expected, the old man had a good eye. He could tell at a glance that this was actually a system, the same kind of correlation method. Zhao Li did not ask any further. He stared at the 72 red dots. This was a set of cultivation method, but it had been dismantled. Now, Suyu wanted to restore it into a set. Or, could it be that this cultivation method was the upper and lower parts, but it was not coherent, and there was a mistake in the middle? He looked carefully, looked at it, and frowned. Suddenly, he walked to the side, picked up his hammer, and started hammering in the air. Suyu turned his head to take a look. Because it was not the text of will, he could not observe it personally, so his drawing was also very abstract. And at the moment, Zhao Li in making models. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 842. Chapter 842, Chapter 209, I Am Invincible 4. Sea of Will Model. This is the weapon forging division. It's meaningless to look at the map. I will create a simulation for you, a physical simulation. Gradually, something similar to a hollow ball was created. Red dots appeared one after another. Lines appeared one after another. Zhao Li stroked his chin, he glanced at Suyu and said, let's take a look. Does this match your fixed point? I don't have time today. Otherwise, I can completely create a puppet. Although the Sea of Will is illusory, it can also be simulated. Puppet. Suyu recalled the situation when he was chased by Lord Xia's puppet that day. The puppet seemed to be very strong. Suyu walked forward, took a look, and nodded slightly. The old man's memory was pretty good. He actually took a look at the map and quickly created the model. Moreover, the position of the 72 divine apertures was exactly the same. Teacher, it's not enough. The divine apertures aren't enough. Suyu thought for a moment and said, Teacher, can you enlarge this model? The very big one, the one where the two of us can walk in the middle. Sure, why do we need it to be so big? This can be considered a literary soldier, and the size can be adjusted. We just need to add some things. It felt great to talk about the modification plan with a weapon forging master. This was especially so for a weapon forging master. With a loud bang, a huge model appeared, and it hovered in the air. Suyu looked around the model for a while, and soon, he drew some dots on some spots. Teacher, there's one here. 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 Surprised, Zhao Li kept adding red dots. 80, 90. 120. 130. Zhao Li's expression changed completely. When he added 144, a total of 4 cultivation techniques appeared. They didn't overlap with each other, but the system was still similar. At this moment, Zhao Li was stunned. Heaven-tier top-tier cultivation technique. 1 set. These 4 sets should be a cultivation technique. Holy shit. Heaven-tier top-grade cultivation technique. Was it there? Did it exist? Where did Suyu get it? This was a set of cultivation technique that had been split apart. There were a total of 144 open divine apertures. Holy shit, if this thing were to spread out, it would cause all the worlds in the heavens to go crazy. In the next moment, Zhao Li's willpower exploded. It covered all directions. He carefully probed inch by inch. He probed to see if someone was monitoring him, to see if someone was spying on him, to investigate all directions. He even directly began to probe Suyu. He was worried that someone had used some tracking and probing divine runes on Suyu's body. As he probed inch by inch, his expression suddenly changed slightly. There seemed to be something in Suyu's heart. His expression changed slightly, and his willpower directly seeped into Suyu's heart. It entered Suyu's heart. He probed bit by bit, and Suyu's face turned pale. What was going on? After an unknown amount of time, Zhao Li's expression returned to normal. He glanced at Suyu, but didn't say anything. He was silent for a while. He exhaled and said, "It's fine. Be careful. Later, I'll give you a surveillance-type literary soldier that specializes in anti-tracking. Right now, some people have grasped some special divine runes. They can spy, eavesdrop, and track. It's better to be careful. Also." He glanced at the model and frowned. "You shouldn't ask me about this thing, nor should you ask anyone. You should hide it and study it slowly when you have the strength. The 144 Gods Aperture Formula." He probably didn't have it either. If he really had it, he would probably be an invincible realm civilized master. Suyu smiled and said, "Teacher, your God-expanding formula isn't worse than this in my opinion. And to be honest, this isn't a system. Don't look at it as similar, but with my wisdom, it might take me decades to combine this cultivation method." After saying that, he thought for a moment and said, "Actually, there's another set. 5 sets are 1. Zhao Li's expression changed. It had completely changed. Divine art. Ah. Divine art, this is a divine art. Zhao Li said solemnly, "Heaven and earth are mysterious and yellow. This is the division of an ordinary person. Above this, there are actually divine arts and divine grade primordial arts. This should be there. The current great Xia Emperor probably used the divine grade heaven-splitting blade. Of course, the highest grade that has been passed down is the heaven grade. Great Xia Emperor, the power of a blade cleave is definitely not the power of 144 yuan apertures. The sun and moon become one aperture. There are also differences in this aperture. You have 144 yuan apertures as one body, one aperture as one skill, one aperture as one technique. It doesn't mean that you can surpass 144 apertures. Even if you have 300 combined apertures as one body, there are still some differences. You will naturally understand these when you arrive at the mountains and seas, sun and moon." Zhao Li did not continue talking about this. Instead, he looked at Suyu. After a long while, he said, "Don't continue with the last technique. It's basically a system. These 4 sets can be combined into one. You can combine the 5th set on your own." As he spoke, Zhao Li looked at the model again and again. After a long while, he said, "I won't go out for the next few days. Don't go out either. Let's try to deduce and connect them. If the positions of the divine apertures are correct, there is also a correlation method. The main thing is to see if we can combine them." Suyu nodded silently. Zhao Li didn't ask him where he came from, and he didn't say anything either. This matter was hard to say. Zhao Li clearly understood where this cultivation technique came from. The chances were that it came from an ancient ruin. It was very likely that Suyu inherited a ruin, and it was even a rare civilization master ruin. It might even be the ruin of an invincible realm civilization master. It was best not to say too much about this thing and ask too many questions. Otherwise, it would be a big trouble. Zhao Li revolved around the model. He said, "This is not something that the Wanwen scripture can compare to. Don't spread it around. If he really wanted to pass it on, he could at most pass it on to someone who had 3 techniques and 1 divine aperture. Even if he had 3 techniques and 1 divine aperture, it would still be a huge problem. It would be best if he had 2 techniques and 1 divine aperture, allowing some people to cultivate in the recuperation stage. With 2 techniques and 1 divine aperture, one could actually cultivate to Ling Yun and Shan Hai. There's no need to switch to cultivation techniques. Zhao Li frowned as he said, opening so many divine apertures might not be a good thing. Can you combine them when you reach the mountains and seas? Cultivating the God-expanding spell will delay your advancement. If you open so many more apertures, your speed will slow down. You might be stuck at the 9th level of Ling Yun for tens to hundreds of years. Of course, you can advance your physical body first. After saying that, he suddenly cursed. F***ck. Your physical body also has a terrifying amount of openings. Do you want to stay under the mountains and seas for a lifetime? Kid, you're just fooling around. Your cultivation technique is too powerful. He didn't know what to say anymore. He glanced at him and saw that he had an innocent expression on his face. He said speechlessly, if you don't advance to invincible, it'll be too much of a waste. You'll waste too much time and resources. If you advance to invincible, you'll soon become a top-notch expert among the invincible. Invincible among the same level. I think you have a chance of becoming invincible even if you fight across levels. You are crazy. Even he felt that Su Yu was crazy. He had opened hundreds of physical apertures and 180 God apertures. Wasn't he afraid that he would be stuck for the rest of his life? Of course, if he really advanced to invincible, it would be terrifying. If he could quickly enter Ling Yun, it would be another big hurdle when the mountains and seas converge. Zhao Li didn't say anything else. The Great Xia Civilization Academy might really produce a monster that could shake the entire world. As for how these cultivation techniques were related to each other, that was also the most urgent matter. Otherwise, if they weren't able to form a system, the effects of these cultivation techniques wouldn't be as earth-shattering. I should find a few invincible experts or the sun and moon to make this thing. Sigh, forget it, I need to use this brain of mine. Zhao Li sighed in his heart. Even though it would be better to find an expert, it would be troublesome if he were to spread the news. That bastard Su Yu really dared to spread the news. Do you believe that I will kill him to silence him? Even if Wan Tianxing was in the academy, the chances of him being killed weren't high. The chances were that he would be sent to the heavenly battlefield. However, thinking about how Su Yu actually trusted him so much, old Zhao felt gratified. As expected, I didn't misjudge him. Look, this kid came to me first to discuss. Sigh, it's a pity that he's not my direct disciple. What right does Hong Tan's faction have to be his teacher and grand teacher? Su Yu has boarded a pirate ship. That's right, disembarking at this time would make him appear heartless. At this time, being able to be in the same boat as the faction of the many divine runes, it would be a matter of love and loyalty. A child with affection and righteousness, was rare. Zhao Li sighed in his heart. That's right. Su Yu had really abandoned the many divine languages faction. He still felt cold in his heart. But in his heart, he didn't feel good. Lu Wenyan, this bastard, misled my disciple. Without Lu Wenyan, I would have met him on his way to school that day. He would definitely have been my disciple. What a pity. This disciple of mine is invincible. The more he thought about it, the more regretful he felt. Even if he really became invincible, he would still be invincible in the multiple divine runes department. It was too regretful that he wasn't invincible in the weapon forging department. Zhao Li felt like a cat scratching his heart. Forget it, the next time I meet by phone, I'll just beat him up. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 843. Chapter 843, Chapter 210 Simple and Honest Entering the Academy asks for a subscription, 1. From October 22nd onwards, Su Yu once again skipped class. In the academy, Su Yu's shadow could not be seen. No one knew where he went. Previously, Suyu said that the multi-god literature department tutoring class had disappeared, and there was no sign of him applying to open a research institute. It was as if that overbearing, arrogant Suyu had never appeared before. Just as Suyu and Zhao Li sealed themselves up. Great Xia Civilization Academy. At the entrance of the academy, Chen Hao looked around. This was Great Xia Civilization Academy. It didn't feel like much. It wasn't as imposing as our Dragon Martial Academy. Chen Hao. At this moment, a male voice sounded beside his ear. Chen Hao turned his head to look and quickly recognized the other party. It's you. The fatty from last time, the one beside you. Xia Huyo's heart was tired. If you're not Suyu's friend, I'll beat you to death. Who should I call fatty? Am I fat? This is called being strong and healthy. This bastard, he's only tall. Otherwise, with his physique, he would be much fatter than himself. How could he have the nerve to call others fatty? Xia Huyo. Xia Huyo casually introduced him and said, Suyu told you, right? He's busy right now and can't come out. I'll make the arrangements for you. Bullsh *T. Chen Hao muttered. What kind of name was that? Just hearing the name made him feel like a bad person. Xia Huyo couldn't be bothered to say more. These days, as long as one got used to it, it would be fine. He waved at Chen Hao and said as he walked, let's go in. Oh right, be smarter. Don't talk nonsense. Don't mention Suyu's name. Don't say that he's his friend. Got it? Got it. Chen Hao nodded. Xia Huyo was surprised. What did you know? Why didn't you ask about the situation? Without waiting for him to speak, Chen Hao said in a low voice, did you kill someone? Or did he just kill them? How many did he kill? It's illegal to kill people here, right? He wasn't caught, right? F***ck. Xia Huyo could only curse like that. Are you so clear about this? Could it be that Suyu wasn't a good person from a long time ago? This was my F***king first time meeting him, so I thought he was an honest child. But listen to him, even before he asked, he already knew that Suyu had done bad things. He wasn't a good person since he was young. His heart was tired. Xia Huyo said as he walked, it's not against the law. Anyway, as long as you know it, it's fine. You have to be careful so that you won't be targeted by others. For sure. Chen Hao nodded, looked left and right, and said curiously, can I call you fatty? I always feel that you're not a good person when I call you by your name. Sure. Xia Huyo gritted his teeth. Whatever, you bastard. You're from the Dragon Martial Academy, right? You'll join the Dragon Martial Guards sooner or later. In the future, when I'm interested in being a general in the Dragon Martial Guards, I'll teach you a lesson. Fatty, are you strong? Not bad. Are you a freshman? Yes. I'm at Qianjun. Those who know you are usually stronger. I'm here. That's not bad. You're almost as strong as me. Chen Hao nodded with a smug look on his face. I'm at Qianjun too. Xia Huyo didn't have the energy to retort. Yes, I'm at Qianjun. The key is your Qianjun the same as mine? Suyu had such a keen eye since he was young. No wonder he could only go to the Dragon Martial Academy. Chen Hao watched as he walked. Suddenly, he said, the Great Xia Civilization Academy doesn't seem to be very lively. Our academy is noisy every day. There are people practicing martial arts from morning to night, and there are even people fighting. Why are you all so quiet? When there was nothing to do, the Great Xia Civilization Academy was indeed very quiet. The students were in class and in seclusion. They rarely ran around. Xia Huyu said casually, those are fighters. We are civilized masters. It's different. Is that so? Chen Hao nodded. Civilized masters were really boring. Moreover, all of them were wearing long robes. They looked really troublesome. When fighting, weren't they afraid that their clothes would be torn? As he was thinking, someone passed by and Chen Hao heard a familiar name. Why did Suyu disappear? I thought he was going to fight for the top 100 this month. Zhang Hai lost last time, and this time he went into seclusion. I think he is preparing to soar into the sky. Once he is able to soar into the sky, Suyu will be able to take first place again. It feels less interesting. That's true. Last time, it was Zhang Hai who fought together with Zhou Hao. After the 25th, he was banned from the list. That day, he had to enter the Sea of Consciousness mystical realm. He can only fight 2 days later. Otherwise, when that Sea of Consciousness mystical realm comes out, Zhang Hai will definitely advance. Suyu. First place in the top 100. Chen Hao was stunned for a moment. He looked at Xia Huyo who was leading the way. After the two people had gone far away, he whispered, "Fatty, did you just say you?" Xia Huyo turned around and glanced at him. He smiled and said, "What do you think? Number 1 on the top 100 list." Chen Hao had a look of surprise on his face. That's right. He's going to beat up your academy's dragon and tiger list. He's going to beat up the number 1 for fun. Chen Hao had a look of depression on his face, right? Didn't he say that he was going to beat up the top 5 last time? How did he beat up the number 1 all of a sudden? So fast. It's only been a few days. He hit someone else, is that why he didn't dare to come out? No, Xia Huyo thought for a moment before saying, Great Xia's Institute of Civilization is much more troublesome than your institute. Dragon Martial University is still considered as one-hearted. After all, after graduation, there's a high chance that they will become comrades in arms, and most of them will join the army. Our side is a little chaotic. Chaotic? Chen Hao whispered, will people die? Yes. Xia Huyo nodded. People would die. This was not a lie. Just a few days ago, 2 mountains and seas had died, 1 Lingyun had died, and a few famous geniuses had been crippled. The battle had already reached its climax. Chen Hao did not say anything else. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 844. Chapter 844, Chapter 210 Entering the Mansion in a Silly Way 2. At this moment, they were almost at the secret realm zone. At this moment, a few people walked over from the front. When they saw Xia Huyo, someone chuckled and said, Brother Xia, are we going to the secret realm zone? As he said that, he glanced at Chen Hao and was a little surprised. Dragon Martial Academy? Chen Hao was still wearing the Dragon Martial Academy's school uniform. Why did the Dragon Martial Academy run to the Civilized Academy? And his strength, wasn't that good? Xia Huyo saw the few of them and chuckled. Where are you guys going? Xia Chan, you didn't even greet your big brother when you saw him. How rude. In the crowd, Xia Chan was among the stars and moons. Xia Chan glanced at him but didn't say anything. Didn't you want to hide your identity? You are a branch disciple. Isn't it normal for me to ignore you? This fatty relied on the fact that he was a few months older than her and bullied people all day long. She could not be bothered with him. The person who greeted him earlier. At this moment, he smiled and said, Brother Xia, we were just about to go and pick them up. Senior brother Zhai Feng and the rest returned triumphantly. This time, they destroyed a base of the Myriad clan cult. Senior brother Zhai and the rest even killed an expert in the soaring heaven tier. If things go smoothly this time, we might be able to offset the punishment from before. As he said that, he glanced at Chen Hao and did not mind. He said casually, Brother Xia, aren't you familiar with Suyu? Where did that fellow go these 2 days? This time, Brother Zhai killed a soaring heaven-tier cultivator. His strength did not retreat but instead advanced. He is probably close to the soaring heaven tier. If he can enter the Sea of Consciousness mystic realm, he will definitely be able to soar. I want to see if Su Yu has the courage to come out and fight for the top 100 rankings in these 2 days. Xia Hu was extremely tired. Why are you telling me all this? I'm a businessman. I won't get involved in these matters. He felt sick in his heart. With a smile on his face, he said, then I don't know. Congratulations, senior brother Zhai. I'm not sure about the situation on Su Yu's side either. If you want to buy information, I can investigate it. I'm just a businessman. I don't care about the disputes between you guys. We understand. The few of them laughed. Previously, when Li Shiyun and the others were defeated, the Divine Language Department was in despair. Fortunately, they did not know if it was to regain their morale. Soon, they received news that Zhai Feng had destroyed a stronghold of the 10,000 clans. He had joined hands with a few students and killed a Sky Realm expert. It had to be said that they heaved a sigh of relief when they heard the news. Kill and soar. This was something that even Zhan Hai could not do, but Zhai Feng did. His strength was even stronger than Zhan Hai's. Zhan Hai was also very strong. If Su Yu and Zhou Hao had not joined forces to attack him previously, Zhan Hai might not have lost in a 2-on-1 battle. This time, the morale of the Divine Literature Department was raised. This person said a few words and asked curiously, Brother Xia, this is, from the Dragon Martial Academy? He can't enter the Mystic Realm Zone, right? Are you guys going to the Mystic Realm Zone? Yes. Before Xia Huyo could say anything, Chen Hao spoke up. Xia Huyo cursed in his heart. F***ck, what are you doing? Don't give me trouble. Su Yu's childhood friend seemed to be very stupid. At this moment, the few of them looked at Chen Hao strangely. You can enter the Mystic Realm area. Chen Hao said foolishly, Seniors, I am a student of the Dragon Martial Academy, a reserve member of the Dragon Martial Guards, and a member of the Xia family. Therefore, my teacher fought for the right to enter your academy's mystic realm. As he spoke, he looked at Xia Chan in the crowd and scratched his head. Is this senior a member of the Xia family? Then she will be my future master. I wonder if she is a direct descendant of the Xia family. Upon hearing his words, the person who spoke earlier immediately smiled and said, Your eyesight is not bad. Martial Uncle Xia Chan is a direct descendant of the Xia family, the granddaughter of Master Xia Ho. Chen Hao immediately half-knelt on the ground and bowed. Chen Hao of the Dragon Martial Academy, a reserve member of the Dragon Martial Guards, greets General Xia. Xia Chan was speechless. Why did she meet a guy from the Dragon Martial Academy on the way here? The Xia family was indeed the master of the great Xia family, and the Dragon Martial Guards were the private army. They could be considered the guards of the Xia family, so there was nothing wrong with Chen Hao bowing. Even though Xia Chan felt a little uncomfortable. She still opened her mouth and said, There's no need to bow. There's no need to be like this in the academy. Yes. Chen Hao stood up obediently. With a simple and honest face, he smiled and said, My name is Chen Hao. My strength is weak, but I'm a meat shield, a private army of the Xia family. The seniors are all friends of General Xia. If you have any problems in the future, feel free to call me. With a simple and honest face, Chen Hao said, I'm going out on a mission. If you're not afraid that I'll be slow, you can also call me along. Even the enlightened masters need guards. In the Dragon Martial Academy, I specialize in guarding. It can effectively prevent sudden attacks and block swords for you all at any time. As he said this, Chen Hao scratched his head and said with an embarrassed face, Seniors, you can leave my contact number. When you carry out the mission, just pay me a few merit points. I guarantee that I won't be afraid of death. He had a simple and honest face, and he was somewhat poor. Seeing the few of them looking at him, he said with an embarrassed face, "We usually don't cooperate with people from other academies to do missions. You are General Xia's friends, but there are exceptions, because we are the Xia family's private army. Although my strength is weak, I will improve after entering the arcane realm this time. I came here this time to build my foundation, so I will definitely become stronger." The few of them looked at him, and the leader smiled and said, "What's your strength now?" "The second level of Qianjun." Chen Hao hurriedly said, "We fighters improve very quickly. We don't need to raise our willpower like the other lords. We will be enlightened very quickly. By the end of the year, I will be able to reach the 4th or 5th level of Qianjun." The 4th or 5th level of Qianjun was a meat shield. This was nothing.